Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is our 70th episode, which is pretty cool that we've survived this long. But when you have great people that come on and support you, it makes life a lot easier. So we have Chuck with us tonight, and Roy and David and Randall and Gustavo just popped in here in the last second. I think he was trying to tease us whether he was going to show up or not. So I want to just say our hellos to everybody here in the chat. We got Terry, where he's getting soaking wet, I guess, in Melbourne, and we have Albert. Mookie's in the house, and we got Michael Drees and Martin Hill. Hello, Martin. Good to see you. Rakesh is here. Rakesh, you snuck in early on us tonight here. Robert Garner. And we've got Robert from Connecticut. And let's see, Woody. And that's it. So we're at 14 people right now. So we're gonna wait a few minutes before we get going. Get at least 20 in here or 22, and then we'll. Providing that everybody's probably out at the movies watching one of two movies, Gladiator 2 or the Wicked movie. So they're probably saying that's more entertaining than us. So we might be down tonight. But we'll have, I think, Mozman might pop in a little bit later. He's in North Carolina right now with his dad, and I'm probably gonna, at least see him to have lunch with him either Monday or Tuesday. He'll be heading back home on Wednesday in time for Thanksgiving in California. I don't know if Thanksgiving in California is any different than anywhere else.
Just a little bit better weather.
Better weather. Yeah, better weather. We're all. My wife got chilled today. We went and saw a movie in the movie theater. I think he had the air conditioning on. Ooh. And she told me, she says she can't get warm in the house no matter what. She's freezing right now.
Wow.
But I had to go see. We go with a couple friends, and so it's kind of like we try to satisfy each other's movie genres, and sometimes I have to watch something maybe I wouldn't have picked for myself. So I had to watch Wicked today. So that's why Mozman's saying that he's glad that I still have a voice, because I was probably singing along to the movie. I'm not going to try to do a cheap impression tonight. My voice would not handle it well. And we've got Ted in here, which is great. Hello, Ted. Good to see you. Art Bear. Yeah. We hope you're doing well as well. And good to see. Good to see you here. And
my son went to see the Wicked movie too, and he was so happy that this is only part one, so you have another one next year.
Yeah. You really didn't have to rub that in, just so you know.
Yeah, I couldn't resist that.
Yeah,
Listen,
Couldn't help it, I know.
yeah. That was. Well, I'll tell you though. They had to spend gobs of cash on set design and stuff, and they had
wow.
so many people in that movie. I didn't read up to see how much the movie cost to make, but it had to cost a hell of a lot of money because they had so many people in it. In a fair amount of the scenes, and just the costumes and the set design and everything had to cost a stupid amount of money. Absolutely crazy. Um, we got Luis is here. Hello, Luis. You should come on in if you want to join us, unless we scare you.
And he's this side of the Atlantic. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yeah, he's lucky he's got the lanky.
Well, we got 22 people, so I think I want to just start off with probably the most important thing tonight is to wish everybody in advance that you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving next week, because obviously we will not see you until after the Thanksgiving holiday. So for those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, we hope you have a wonderful time with friends and family. And it happens to be probably my favorite holiday. I like Halloween a lot too, but I like Thanksgiving more than Christmas because it's more, to me, it's just more about the gathering of friends and family and enjoying each other's company versus the next holiday, which is a little too commercialized for me. But Thanksgiving is really a good time where people are gathering for a better reason, just to be with each other and enjoy each other's company. And so I hope everybody gets out and maybe sees a friend that they haven't seen in a while and cheer them up if they're on hard times, and spend time with your family, because that's the most important thing. And life's too short, so it's important to see everybody that you care about. And Mozman's going to send me a reminder so I don't miss part 2 next year. I appreciate that.
Could be worse. It could be frozen.
Yeah. My wife got frozen. Randall, let's see. We got a question here. Any good Aurora place within 3-hour drive from Toronto?
Well, it's Toronto is better than a 3-day drive from me. So, and that's driving for 12 hours a day. So I wouldn't be able to answer that, but Toronto's fairly far south. But you got to go to a place where the air is clear. But this time of the year, when it's cooling off, if you're downwind of any of the lakes, you're going to have snow. So you got to be upwind. And there's lots of lakes down there, and I don't know if there's any place that you can go where you're upwind. But we've had snow every night here for about the last 10 days.
Oh, wow.
So I haven't even bothered to look at what's going on. So it's like that at the moment, and it's supposed to dry out a little bit. But and the funny thing is parts of Alberta are almost desert. It's really dry.
Ooh.
And to have 10 days of snow it doesn't happen often. It's really small flakes. And I sent Gustavo a picture. We don't quite have 2 feet yet.
Yeah.
But if you measure it horizontally, we got more.
But like you, us here, we need that snow in the winter. That's our water.
We sure need it. Because if we don't get the snow, then Calgary can run out of water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to put up our little reminder here for a photo review on December 7th. So that's not next Saturday. It's the following Saturday. We have 26 images right now. So we hope that everybody kicks it in gear. It's not a bad start, but start dribbling them into me between now and the 6th of December. That would be appreciated. But 26 so far isn't too bad, and I'm not counting any that I'm going to throw in. That's just all the ones I've gotten from other people so far. So that'll be good. So we can have a good show on that night. So appreciate everybody's effort as always to try to find something to send in. And like I said, we don't typically try to say it has to be about a certain topic or a certain subject or whatever, because everybody has different tastes and things that they shoot. So I just want you to share what you feel comfortable sharing with people and what you're happy with, and not force you to do something that you're uncomfortable doing. So doesn't mean that if you have any interesting Thanksgiving photos to share after the fact, feel free to do so, as long as they're not too embarrassing. You never know with you guys. You never know what you're going to send in.
Well, yeah, Jeff, you got my Vancouver pictures? I sent them this afternoon, so. So you may have 31.
Yeah,
Don't bother looking for them anyway. They're there. So
they're there somewhere. Okay. Yeah. Let's see what we got. Now we're going to have a few. Well, Gustavo's going to be doing a presentation later in the night about the rail transportation in Japan when he was there, and sharing some information about that. If things get slow, I've got some material to share on a recent inexpensive collector vintage camera purchase of recent days that I've gotten that did not break the bank whatsoever, which is just a strange, weird camera. So I like things that are different. And say hi to Ava is here. So good to see you, Ava. And Luis, I guess, is in the queue, probably waiting to come in. So let me get him in the house here. There we go. We're into double rows now. Okay, watch out. This is going to be like the Hollywood Squares, like when Chuck always had the Hollywood Squares going on AP Studios, and Circle has the square. I think that's how it went, right?
And I'm sure Luis will have some photos to share. He's in a beautiful tropical place.
He's always in a beautiful tropical place.
Hey,
not always though.
I'd like to see I'd like to see Luis saying, "Here I am with pictures from from some really rough area."
well, he's planning on one of those.
Some rough urban area.
No, I don't have many pictures to show you because I had no time to process them yet. But I'm going to send you a couple of pictures so I can explain or let's say why I'm here. I'm in the island of St. Martin in the Caribbean.
We'll talk here a little bit about a few Nikon rumors. There wasn't really a ton of stuff. I mean, for those that may be interested in the Z50 version 2, Mark II, however you want to word it, it's now in stock at B&H. The user manual and the reference guide presumably are now available on Nikon USA. They were not there when the camera was announced, but apparently they are there now for those of you that might want to peruse.
I actually had my hands on the Z50 or Z52.
You had your hands on one?
Yep.
Did you walk away with it?
Nope.
No. Not impressed, or just not your style, not your sensor size?
A whole bunch of
beginner's
things.
camera.
Yeah, it's a very good first camera. and to get you in. And I've got 3 other Zeds that have slightly better specs other than size, and so I don't really need another one.
You can't have too many.
You can't have. Well,
Yeah.
David. Like I said, he's balancing out his shelves with lenses right now.
I just found 3 lenses I didn't know I had.
You found 3 you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
What, are they still in the box?
Oh, yeah.
I
On
can't.
a terrible camera, sorry.
I just
With
see
the fun set.
whatever the fun
It's
set
the
is.
absolute worst camera lenses they ever made.
Uh-oh.
So that's why you bought them?
Yeah, that's why I got them.
Yeah.
Were they made out of cardboard or something?
No, they're just there's 3 lenses. I don't remember buying them.
Well, I guess they were forgettable then.
They're pretty crappy lenses, but they're different.
Was that a Zeiss?
No, it's Nikon, but they're very weird.
Very
Oh, wow.
weird.
What are the
I just
focal
thought it was
lengths?
interesting.
So you bought those as a kit.
Yeah, I must have sometime. I just don't remember buying them.
Wow.
I put
Well,
them
they're in
away
the museum in Tokyo.
Yeah, they're only available in Japan.
Ah,
I must have bought them
okay.
because they're rare.
So what are the focal lengths?
I think it's 20, 120, and 400. Just small for a 400, isn't it?
400.
What's the aperture?
No,
5.6?
It's f8. They're very poor performing lenses, but they're very rare, so I bought them. Must be why I bought them anyway. They're funny, just very weird looking lenses. I used to think they were really crappily made, but by today's standards, they're quite solid.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
Thermos. Yeah.
The
Comes with stickers and
okay.
stupid camera on my laptop's useless.
So Mr. Ishii's in the house.
The
None of us are dead.
oh, Mr. Ishii's here. Hello, John. Good to see you.
I don't.
I hope, John, I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. We mentioned that at the beginning of the show.
Okay.
Hopefully you have a good Thanksgiving. Nikon Rumors had to kind of reverse a comment they made last week, and I know Mozman kind of tried to correct their error on the show last week. Is that the Viltrox autofocus 135 f1.8 lab lens, and now also the 35 millimeter f1.7 is coming to the Nikon Z mount. They don't have a release date, but last week Nikon Rumors implied that they were not going to make a 135 1.8 for the Z mount, but they were incorrect, so they had to correct their oopsa. I found some stuff interesting regarding batteries. Is the on Nikon Rumors, they talked about it, and I read into it a little bit. The Small Rig came out with some EN EL15C batteries. They had orange ones and blue ones, and I guess only the orange ones are compatible with the Z6 III. The blue ones are not. But what's neat, and I didn't realize this, is those batteries have a USB-C port on them and they can be charged in a lot of different ways, because you could just plug any USB charger with a cable into them to charge them up, or a power bank, or a lot of different ways of charging those batteries. And then they have a an indicator to let you know when it's in charging mode, and when it, I think it's red. There's something that illuminates red when it's charging, and then I think it's green when it's completely charged. But the thing is that its claim to fame is that the charging time for this battery is supposedly 45% less compared to other USB-C camera batteries, and 65% quicker compared to using a conventional charger. And if you use a high current charging 5-volt 2-amp device, you can have a full battery in 2.5 hours. And it said, now what's interesting too is when the Z8 came out, I know I had made a comment that it would be nice, and I was hoping that Nikon would come out with some higher capacity batteries. And we all kind of said, yeah, that would be nice if that were to happen. And obviously that hasn't happened yet. But these particular small rig batteries are 2,400 milliamp hours, and they're 7.2 volts or 17.28 watt hours, which is the Nikon battery is only 7-volt battery at 2,290 milliamp hours at 16 watt hours. So, but you kind of wonder if in the fine print somewhere in the Nikon manual or something, where if you don't use their battery in their camera, that they don't honor the warranty or something weird like that. That would be my only concern. But these batteries do have a little bit of extra in them. They do charge quicker. And so maybe the fact that they've done it may kind of kick Nikon in the pants to come out with a little bit better battery under their name. We'll have to wait and see if that happens.
The only thing, Jeff, I have one. It doesn't work with any of my cameras that have the XP 7 chip in them.
Really?
Yep. So
why would that be if theoretically it supposedly has more power than the Nikon one?
It's probably missing a chip that talks to the camera.
Oh, so Nikon
did the same thing.
Nikon did a little magic to make sure a third-party battery won't work in their cameras then.
Yeah, because I've got an external power supply that I could use for my cameras, but I can't use it on my cameras that have the XP 7 chip.
Well, that's kind of like shady and nasty.
Yeah, Nikon's been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, that's.
It started with the D850 when they made the old batteries not work anymore.
I can still use the old battery in my 850.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the very first Mark Zero EL15 don't work in it.
Mine do.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Chuck, are you taking off? Are you hanging in here for a while? Oh, okay.
Maybe I've got the Canadian version that works better.
Oh, there's some serial numbers that don't work with the 850, and then it gets worse after that. They started locking out a lot of batteries.
Well, I'm still using a battery that I got with my D7000. It still works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also my 600, and I've got 3 batteries of that vintage, and like I haven't thrown away any of my old Nikon batteries yet.
We got some interesting information here that Mr. Ishii's going to Beijing on December 2nd, and that he got his China visa last week. Well, good for you. Stay safe and have a good time and stay safe.
He was in Hong Kong.
And Roy, you got another acknowledgement on your shirt. Yeah, Digital Equipment Corporation was a great company. I worked for a company that bought an awful lot of their computers and their big RLL1, RLL2 disk drives.
I used to work in the software development.
And the VAX. You remember the VAX 11730? I believe it was.
PDP 11. PDP 11.
Yeah, PDP. Yeah.
I know it well.
I worked on all that stuff from a hardware standpoint. In my first company that I worked for 10 years. But they were a good company. Unfortunately, I don't know. Roy would probably know why they went down the toilet, but they were a great company.
All the mini and mainframes have suffered over the years.
Yeah.
Some of the big ones like Wang went first.
Yeah.
Pretty sad.
But let's see. John says he's armed with his Plena this time when he goes on his trip.
Big lens to take on a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, the TV is probably mine. I had my dog was watching the Notre Dame Army game, and she since left it because Notre Dame was whipping their behinds pretty bad. So she's now under my desk. So I'll be back in about 20 seconds. I'm going to go turn the TV off. I didn't realize that people would be able to hear it.
It was probably me.
I love digital. I was working on their Windows at the time. Till Microsoft stuffed it up for me. Still got the source code. They don't know it. I've got it.
But you don't remember when you bought those lenses, right?
It must have been probably 20 years ago.
Wow.
See, I
I'm
thought
trying to
if you
remember.
you guys heard the fans cheering in the background, I would just say that's my little rooting group I have at the house to keep me going on the show. But
All the manuals in Japanese.
Gustavo's got his son visiting with him. I hope that's good. That's good, right?
Hey, good.
Okay.
But my house get invaded. You know, he bring his friends, and then suddenly there is a lot more activity. You know the feeling.
Oh yeah. Let's see what else we got. There's a Roy. I'm not sure if this is the one Roy has or not. They had a commentary on Nikon rumors that the quote unquote the legendary Nikon fisheye Nikkor f2.8 6mm Auto 220 is being auctioned off by Leica. The current bid as of 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday was 65,000 euros.
I haven't got that one.
You don't have that
I've
one?
got a couple of them, but not that one. That's too expensive.
Okay. And they said they estimate it's going to sell between 80 and 90,000 euros by the time the auction is over. And U.S. dollars just roughly add like 3,000 to 5,000 to that number, somewhere around there.
They've gone for double that at times. They used to come with a Nikon F mounted on the back of them.
They said that in July of 2023, that same lens was listed for $130,000 US on eBay. Now, who knows if it's sold or not? They didn't say that. They didn't answer that question.
I think they only made about 120 of them. Very small amount. They used to call it the Sky Lens. It was made especially for trips to the Antarctic and Arctic where they can track clouds. Come with all these graphs and that to track the clouds with.
Okay. There's a company called Hidden Realms based in Switzerland that offers a range of affordable CCD sensor Nikon cameras that have been modified for infrared photography. They're sold on eBay. I did go on eBay and found them rather quickly. And one example they had was a modified Nikon D5000 13 megapixel camera for $489. So I have no idea whether that's considered a good price or not. David might know.
For a
'Cause
modified one, it is. The
he's
thing
had
is, mirrorless is better for IR than DSLRs were because of the way it measures the light.
we are going to talk a little Sony stuff tonight, and as part of that discussion, some of it gets very interesting because there's some. We'll talk a little bit about global sensors, talk about the A9 III a little bit, only because Canon decided to kind of talk about global sensors a little bit, and they had some kind of pointed commentary to make about the A9 III sensor, global shutter. So we'll kind of like touch base on that, and I'll read to you what was stated. And some of the commentary kind of fell in line with some things that we discussed way back when the A9 III was coming out. So it was kind of interesting to read their viewpoint. It kind of coincided with what a lot of us folks here on the panel were saying many months ago. The obviously the big news probably for the week is that the Sony A1 Mark II came out. The specs and the info are all already everywhere on the B&H website, along with, save the date for, seminars and discussions about the camera and what have you. And the price is $6,498 US. And I'm just noting that that's $1,000 more than a Z9 without the grip, which would be another $398 on top of that if you wanted to get the battery grip on the A1 Mark II. So it would be more competitive, at least battery wise, with the with a Z9. So it's definitely a high price point in my opinion. It uses the same 50 megapixel sensor that was in the previous version. It does have pre-capture, and it felt like a month of Sundays to find out whether the pre-capture was raw or not. And I finally supposedly found information that says it does do pre-capture raw up to 30 shots. And it has a 0.03 to 1 second setting in terms of, how long you are capturing the image before you push the shutter down all the way.
The
And
implementation looks better than Canon implementation.
Oh, it is a very good camera, but we'll get into some of the.
But what I mean is the implementation of pre-capture RAW is better because with the Canon system, the R5 and the R1, you only have one option. Here you have different.
You have a range.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's much better.
Now they do have, for those who feel comfortable with with a screen that you can rotate and all that, this thing tilts, all directions, and it also folds out and it twists around, and it's a very angled screen, and some reviewers say, oh, that's like the best screen that you could possibly want to have on a camera. And I know that Nikon definitely has the mindset that they, or have had the mindset on their professional cameras, where they don't want to be flipping them out and twisting them. I mean, because anytime you got like a flexible cable in there or some very small diameter wire gauges going through there, all that's like a weak link. All that twisting and movement, the more you do that, the more likely something is to break or separate at some point in time. It all depends on how much it gets used. Now the camera advertises 8.5 stops of stabilization, but the thing with that is they're now, whoever comes up with the standards for stabilization is now expanded their methodology to say it's this stable in the center of the display, but the corners it might be less. But we're splitting atoms here. I mean, most of us shot cameras and were able, when we were younger, to hand hold at pretty slow shutter speeds without stabilization and get pretty good results. And so, I don't get all too overly excited if one camera does 6.5 stops and one camera does 8.5 stops, because be honest with you, I'm not usually for what I shoot. I'm not shooting it at shutter speeds where I need to have any stabilization at all. Anyway, I could have 0 and I wouldn't have a problem. So, but different strokes for different folks. But their 30 frames per second rate has the same, call it a limitation if you want, but it's the same as the A1, where it's lossy compression only, so it is not as big of much of a bit depth as when you're shooting at 20 frames per second lossless. So that's how they manage to pull 30 frames per second out of their camera, and that's what I've argued many times, that Nikon could easily do that right now with the Z9 if they wanted to, and I guess they just choose not to care that they're not shooting 30 frames per second. I mean, obviously they can shoot 120 frames per second in JPEG, but they don't seem to be too bothered by the fact that obviously Sony used their 30 frames per second as a big marketing edge over to Nikon, and Nikon could match that if they want. Apparently they don't think it's that big a deal. And for me, I don't even shoot 20 frames per second that often. Certain circumstances I do, but not every single time I take a shot am I sitting there at 20 frames per second. It does 8K 30p, 4K 120, 10-bit. The 4K is not derived from 8K, which it is if you have an R5 II or a Z8. It has an AI chip that allows you to have what they say all the A9 III goodies, like accurate subject detection, improved autofocus, and so forth. But they're really interestingly pushing as a major selling point that they have an auto mode, so the camera can determine what the subject is and set the subject detection accordingly for the subject. And that's something that the Z9 has done since day one. So that isn't anything new to some people. And there are other cameras as well that had an auto mode where it would, the only thing with the auto mode, irregardless of the brand of camera, it slows it down a little bit, okay, because you're not, it has to figure out what it is that it's focusing on, okay? So there is that slight delay that you're going to have with any camera. So you're always better off if you know what you're going to be shooting to set the specific mode and not use auto. But if you're in a situation where things could change on a whim from people to animals, like, if you're taking pictures of your kids playing with your dog, right? Okay, 1 minute maybe you're just getting a picture of the kid, next minute you're taking a picture of the dog. You might want to be in auto mode. It can use either 2 CFE type A cards or 2 SD cards in the camera, and it has 1 USB-C input. It uses the same Sony battery, which is 2,280 milliamp hours, and just for comparison, the Z9 is 3,300 milliamp hours. So it's obviously we know the battery in the Z9 is higher capacity than the battery that's in the Sony. They were rumoring that it was going to be able to handle the version 4.0 of the CFE cards, which it's not. And the A1, for those that are interesting, are supposedly have been marked down $1,000. So the A1 is $1,000 off.
That's good value. Better
Now,
value.
some comments from DP Review, because I want to. I'll let you know when any comments are my opinion, but right now these are not my opinion. These are just out of DP Review having reviewed the camera, and they say critically the A1 II includes a series of features from both the A1 and the A9 III, designed specifically for professionals trying to deliver images quickly that the less expensive rivals lack. This includes a variety of transfer options, including SFTP and several ways of marking files to be transferred. They also expect the A1 II to gain the ability to encode C2PA authentication metadata to its files. So it has much faster Wi-Fi, a faster Ethernet setup. So yes, if you are a working pro and you're transferring files to somebody from a distance using your Ethernet hookup, you're going to get your files there quicker. But how many of us do that? That's a very small percentage of people. And although it may be faster, it's not like, how much time are you really saving? Is how much of an advantage is that going to give you? I don't know. But for some people who may find that to be a real big deal versus the competition, others, it doesn't matter. And they said, unsurprisingly, it's the cumulative impact of these workflow features aimed at professionals working in high-intensity environments that try to set the camera apart. And they say, if you're not one of those people, and most of us aren't, then the A1 II almost certainly isn't worth so much more than the more consumer-priced models. They said, but how can these small details, an Ethernet port, that huge high-res viewfinder, and details like matched media card slots really add up to justify a 50% premium over the enthusiast/pro crossover bodies, such as the Z8 and the EOS R5 II? They're saying ultimately it may simply be a pro tax. That $6,000 is how much a pro focused camera costs. Okay, that's an interesting statement. It's the amount the market has shown it will bear, and it's likely to be how much companies, including single photography companies, will have budgeted for a camera. They said, if there's any doubt in your mind about whether the A1 II is worth the extra $2,000 over the Z8, that really isn't a correct number, because what the Z8 is selling for now, it's actually $3,000 more than a Z8. Or the EOS R5 II, says, then you're not its target audience, and consequently, it almost certainly isn't. But if you are a Sony shooting pro, the A1 II adds significantly to the skill set of the previous model, but against dramatically improved competition, and with so much the Z9 and R1 tech trickled down to the Z8 and the R5 II, it's not the game changer that its predecessor was. So it's more of it's an evolutionary camera, not a revolutionary camera. And that's my opinion. This is where my opinion's coming in. It's an evolution, not a revolution. And as stated, unless you need faster output of your files for pro use, is it worth $1,400 more than a Z9 if you add the grip? Otherwise, it's $1,000 more. Is it worth $3,000 more than a Z8, or over $2,000 more than an R5 II? And note that the Canon R5 II doesn't have a grip on it either. That they sell theirs for $350. So I think my opinion is, I think the A1 II is a great camera, but unless you're already invested in the Sony ecosystem or a Sony Pro, there are great choices for significantly less money from both Canon and Nikon that you should consider. If you're someone that's doesn't have all Sony glass, or doesn't, you know what I mean, and you're like buying your first high-end camera and you're starting from scratch, you have a lot of thinking to do to decide whether that price point is justified versus what else is out there right now.
Yeah. Jeff, I want to make a quick comment here.
Yeah.
John Ishii was always saying that when he was doing stuff like that, he was shooting JPEG and not RAW. So automatically your file sizes are smaller. And as much as a person on the panel doesn't like SnapBridge, you can have your pictures automatically go into your phone and to the cloud, and it is fast. He's somewhere around there, but I'm not going to point it out. And it should be better. I agree. But if you want to do something on the fly, if you got a good phone and a good cell connection, that works. But if you're otherwise, you got to have a wired connection if with your Sony, and if you're going to be wired, you can use your Nikon.
Well, John's commenting that his buddy is an AP remote editor, and AP uses Sony, and it's like, yeah, well, they don't exactly have a choice. AP decided to switch over to Sony overall, so all their photographers are shooting Sony, irregardless of what they may personally want to shoot. So they made a deal with them, which is fine. They got every right to shoot whatever brand of camera that they want to shoot for their wire service, and they chose Sony. Good for them. But like I said, it's not like those folks have much of a choice.
Yeah.
Now, along with that announcement for that camera, they came out with the Sony FE 20-70 f2 constant aperture throughout the zoom range, their GM lens, which is 28-98. And that's an interesting lens. I mean, it's a big, heavy lens. It's a big lens. It's got 4 XD linear autofocus motors, floating focus, ultra fast focusing, minimum 1.2 foot close focusing throughout the range, aperture declick and lock switches, XA and super ED elements, dust and moisture resistant, nano coating, fluorine coating, 11 blade rounded diaphragm. It has a zoom smoothness switch that changes the torque between smooth and tight when you're adjusting the zoom ring. And when you go from the 20 millimeter focal length to the 70, it's not a completely internal zoom, but it only extends like 0.7 inches, which is really next to nothing. So that if you have it on a gimbal, a lot of the weight is supposedly in the back of the lens. So if you have your gimbal adjusted when you're at the 28 millimeter setting, and then you decide to zoom out to 70, more than likely you don't have to fool around with your gimbal adjustments, because that short a throw is not going to be significant enough to screw up your settings. You'll probably be okay. But it's got 2 pounds of weight near the rear of the barrel. The lens is 3.6 inches in diameter and 5.5 inches long. It's 28% larger and 24% heavier than the 24-70 f2.8 GM version 2, but it's twice as bright. And you can set the aperture ring to an A mode, and then that way all your aperture changes are through your camera dials rather than an aperture ring that is on the barrel of the lens. And it has 2 focus hold buttons and a focus mode switch. And the lens hood has a locking button and a filter window so that you can rotate the polarizer filter with the lens hood on. And I always found that interesting that a few camera manufacturers had tried to do that. And I'm just wondering if they don't all do that, because maybe when they cut the slots in the lens hood for you to be able to rotate the polarizer, they're worrying that a little bit of stray light could get in through that opening and affect things. I don't know. I
But
don't know.
it certainly looked like a logical addition to the hood.
Yeah, it does seem like a really, really good idea. So I guess I'm just I'm just very curious why everybody doesn't do it. But so yeah, so it's a good camera. I'm not knocking the camera. I mean, it's obviously pricey. I mean, Sony is. I read a comment in something I read today where a lot of people say that Sony tries obviously makes a lot more camera models than anybody else basically, and so the commentary was they try to make cameras that excel for different certain segments of the market, and but the only camera that really falls under like maybe a more of a generalist camera that does everything good was the A1 or this new A1 Mark II, because all the other cameras, one might be really good for landscapes, but it's not good for wildlife. And another one might be good for wildlife, but it's not good for landscapes. Another one might be good for sports, but it's not good for a lot of other things. And so the commentator said, unlike Nikon, who tries to make cameras that they're priced lower, and they do a lot of things well where they can be used for a lot of different genres. They're not so case specific as the Sony cameras tend to be. So I thought that was an interesting observation, and people may or may not agree with that. Mozman, Chuck's wife had surgery today. It was very long, and she's kind of in a bit of pain, and so he's taking care of her. So that's why you don't see him on the screen right now.
He came briefly at the beginning.
Yeah, but I've got some good news. She has a job in Connecticut, so she's going to be home from now on.
Very good.
That's good.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Mosman. I've been texting Maribel off and on through the show, and I asked her how long she's going to be home. She told me about her new job, and Chuck is doctoring her. And I said, it must be pretty quiet in the house because neither of you are having trouble talking. So
the cat's making more noise than both of them put together, probably.
I don't know if she can hear us, but anyway.
Yeah. Hey, Maribel, if you're there listening to us, we all wish you the best. We hope you recover quickly. It's no fun to have any kind of surgical procedure. And to say it's a pain in the neck, it always is a pain in the neck. So we hope that you feel much better tomorrow, and that you're in good shape before Thanksgiving comes. Now, what was interesting when I then went from what I just commented on about the Sony, and then I went over to the Fuji rumor site. What was interesting is that whoever the person is that does Fuji rumors, I guess, kind of got a little bit miffed by some of the press that the Sony A1 Mark II is getting, because he says one feature that reviewers unanimously praised on the A1 II is its automatic subject detection mode, and he points out that was a capability that the Fujifilm X-S20 has had for quite some time. He says, however, Fujifilm has consistently declined to implement that feature in its higher-end models via firmware update. And he says, interestingly, while the Sony A1 II is now being lauded for this feature as though it's the greatest innovation since sliced bread, the same reviewers largely overlooked it when the Fujifilm X-S20 introduced it. At best, it received a passing mention, with only a few exceptions, like Johnny from Cine D, who both praised the feature and urged Fujifilm to roll it out to other cameras via firmware updates. He says this disparity highlights Sony's and we've all talked about this before. This disparity highlights Sony's superior ability to engage with influencers compared to Fujifilm. We could say the same thing about Sony's that same capability versus Nikon, right? Because Nikon has had that feature in its Z9 since that camera came out. You know, did the Z9 get praise for having the ability to have that feature to automatically detect what the subject was? No, nobody talked about it a lot. But like he says, for the A1 II, it's being marketed as that's one of the major improvements in the camera, and everybody's all happy about it. And it's like there are other cameras that have had that for a while. So one could say, yeah, Sony caught up, but boy, they're certainly getting a lot of good press for something that the other guys never got any press for at all, which is, something that does get under people's skin. And then, so anyway, enough of that. But it was interesting that it kind of got the dander up on the Fuji rumors guys weren't too happy about it. Now another thing on the Fuji side is I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Sirui, Sirui. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah.
You guys know the proper pronunciation? Sirui.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Sounds good, Jeff.
They got a 40 millimeter T1.8, 1.33 times S35 autofocus anamorphic lens for X mount is coming. It's now listed. It's now being financed through an Indiegogo campaign, and that campaign's going to go live in 2 days. And I looked up, what is an anamorphic lens, because I've heard of them before, but it isn't anything that we typically buy. And the description is an anamorphic lens. It squeezes the image. It basically creates a very wide format, but it squeezes the image onto film or a smaller digital camera sensor, and allows for a wider aspect ratio than what would otherwise be possible with traditional lenses, and results in more cinematic images with shallower depth of field and an oval bokeh effect. Instead of round bokeh balls, it has oval football-shaped bokeh balls. And it says, regardless of the method, the anamorphic lens projects a horizontal squeezed image on the film negative. This is talking about film now. This deliberate geometric distortion is then reversed on projection, resulting in a wider aspect ratio on screen than that of the negative frame. So I'm assuming it's basically the same thing with your digital sensor size. And they say it's excellent. The lenses are excellent for capturing sweeping vistas and theater-sized aspect ratios. They typically don't focus well when close to subjects, which is why they're often used in action films or scenes where there's plenty of motion or a wide landscape. So if you're getting excited about an anamorphic lens, as are many things, it has some advantages for certain types of, say, filmmaking or video making, and then it has some negatives as well. So you have to weigh your options and decide which way you want to go. But that was interesting to look into that a little bit more. And continuing with Fuji rumors,
before you continue with Fuji, you were going to make some comments about the global shutter versus in relationship to the one. Is that now or later?
That'll be a little bit later.
I didn't want you to lose the Sony aspect of this.
No, because all that commentary about that came from Canon. So when I get to the Canon rumors is when it's going to be brought up.
Good.
Now this was interesting because we could say this concern, we probably have this concern, or the Nikon faithful probably have this concern a little bit, which now Fuji rumors has a little concern over, is that, I think it was last week or the week before, I talked about this new Fujifilm GFX Eterna cinema camera that they're developing that's going to get released soon. And and they don't right now only have one lens for it, and they're committed to releasing additional lenses for it. And they're saying, well, that's important to know for people that might want to invest in that system. But they then go on to say, this is where the person writing the article says, this is where my concern arises. He says, with the current pace constrained by R&D limitations, Fujifilm is producing a maximum of 4 lenses a year. Now, with the launch of a new cinema camera system that requires a dedicated range of lenses as quickly as possible, the situation becomes even more challenging. He says, unless Fujifilm expands its R&D efforts for the digital camera segment, we might see fewer than 4 lenses per year for the photo-focused X and GFX systems. And quite honestly, with 4 still lenses a year, he says, we are already at a minimum. Getting even less than that would be a bummer for him. So he says, I hope Fujifilm has considered this and won't simply divert resources from their photo-centric systems to the cinema camera lineup. Instead, they should expand their overall R&D efforts to maintain at least the current pace of producing 4 photo-centric lenses per year. And so my comment is, many of us Nikon shooters may have those same concerns regarding Nikon creating cinema lenses for the red lineup for cinema cameras.
Yeah, but it's about the money, right? What it makes them money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about the money.
But I'm just saying, there's still gaps in the lineup, and there's that potential that if they start going 100 miles an hour with cinema lenses, that some lenses that we may want to have from the photo or hybrid shooters, we may not get them for a long time because they don't have enough. I think it's more not so much money because they're doing well financially, but they might not have enough bodies to do it.
Exactly. Compromises.
And right. So I think that same Viltrox lens I talked about earlier, the 135, is also going to be available on the Fuji X mount as well. So,
like Queen we say, Freddie Mercury, we want it all, we want it now.
Well, we say we want it now, and then when it comes out, we say, well, I don't quite have enough money yet.
Exactly.
I just got a message from Maribel, and she'd like to thank everybody for all the comments that they made about her. And I said you can read them in the chat, and she said the comments were much appreciated.
Very good.
Well, Maribel, you and Chuck are special to everybody in the chat and everybody on the panel. So it's important that it's Chuck's turn to take care of you for a little while. You were doing it with him for quite a while, so now he gets to share a little bit of the time taking care of you. Maybe you could train the cat to like heat up soup or something, make a meal.
Well, hopefully that Chuck can cook better than that. All his time in the military, he must have learned something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I expect him to come back to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to save the Canon rumors one here for a little while to tease you guys, I think. And I'm going to let Gustavo, are you in good shape to do your pitch?
Let me put it on. Keep talking for a little while.
You want
Jeff, I sent you also a couple of pictures by email. I cannot share from here where I am.
All right.
And I can explain a bit why I'm here in the island of St. Martin, visiting my son.
That'd be nice.
All right. So give me a second to save your images, and then I could bring them up.
Yeah,
This will give Gustavo time to get his stuff in order.
that's fine, because I've been here for 2 weeks. So my son is studying biology, and at the moment he's doing helping with, let's say, a survey about his big seashell. I think it's called the queen conch. I just went on
A conch,
Wikipedia.
a conch shell, conch,
Yeah, yeah,
CONCH.
it's a big one, and it's
Yeah.
eaten around here, and their numbers have plummeted the last, let's say 20 years. So they are trying to figure out how many of them are around the island. So they are making a survey on the south of the island of St. Martin.
Oh,
So that's the seashell. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have one of those in my bedroom when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's funny to see because I've been here and there are plenty of those seashells around in restaurants or at people's home as the decorations, you know.
it's huge.
The issue, Luis, as you know, is that they are good to eat, correct? So they
Yeah, I mean,
they get
we
harvested,
did.
correct?
Apparently, yes.
Well,
I
they're
mean,
going to have to do. They're going to have to. I'm sure they have conch farms per se, hopefully, so that they manage the resources and don't deplete
I'm
them.
not sure they do. Although, to be honest, today, well, what my son says, they are a lot more common in deeper waters. But the thing is, to reproduce, they need to be in big enough numbers. Otherwise, if the numbers are too low, they will not produce offspring. So they need to congregate in big numbers at each different areas, so that there is a possibility for the population to continue.
Yeah, it's not good. We're very we are getting very good about depleting the ocean's resources. I mean, I'm a big shark fan, which I really like sharks, and we don't have many left. People and a lot of people don't care because they don't like sharks, but they don't realize that sharks are to the ocean what lions are to Africa, and you have to have a balance. You have to have a predator that thins out the weak, and kind of maintains a balance in the system, whether it be, like I said, animals in Africa or fish or anything in the ocean. And when you start taking away, when you start wiping out all the predators, then all of a sudden you're just gonna have a big increase in population of other species, which then may even have a greater effect on the environment because there's no check and balance anymore. And
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
Absolutely.
I'll bring up.
Although today we went to the northern part of the island to a nature reserve, and I'm not a very good snorkeler, but my wife and my son, they spotted a lot of these seashells in undeep waters. But that's in a nature reserve, which is good news because there they are well protected. Now, this is the only picture I processed so far from the island, and this is quite a funny one. It's a bridled quail dove. It's a funny one because there are so far no reports of this bird on the island of St. Martin, at least not in this century. So it was quite a surprise for me to take a picture of this bird on the second day that we were here. And because my son works in the nature works, he's now for 6 months in this nature foundation. I sent them the pictures. They were very curious. They were also very suspicious about me finding this bird, which is fair enough.
When they think that you smuggled it in or something.
or it was on a different island. And my son said, well, they just arrived the day before yesterday.
Yeah.
And my father doesn't have a reputation of sending the wrong pictures on the wrong location. So
Were you
after
using something flash on this one, Luis?
no, this this is with the 500 PF and the
Okay.
Z8. No flash.
Okay.
It was quite dark. I
Look,
don't have
good light. Very
the
good light.
settings here with me. Excuse me.
Very good light.
Yes, you made it work. It looks good.
Yeah. It did work out, but I know these kind of type of pigeons from quail pigeons from Costa Rica, and I was really surprised to see it here. Because at first I thought I didn't do my homework properly, and they do live here. And then they really wanted, so I ended up sending them the original pictures, and they asked me to put my copyright name on the pictures. So I sent them several good and bad ones, but just as a proof that I did take the pictures along that path. Send them 6 pictures, and now they are happy that at least the bird has been recorded recently.
See, you did a historical event without realizing it.
Well, the pigeon is present in other islands around here. The reason probably why it's not been seen for decades or for a long time is that they introduced mongoose here in 1888, and they wiped out a lot of the local snake was completely wiped out, and probably they ate most or all of these quails because they tend to nest on the ground.
Beautiful.
So this is one of the beaches in the north part of the island that we visited. And
How come there's nobody on the beach?
because you have to walk for about 40 minutes, and people don't like to walk to get there.
I would walk to get on that beach.
Yeah, so would I.
Yeah, it's and I went. My son hadn't been there yet, although he has been here for about 4 months on the island. So 3-4 days ago, we went back with him, and him and my wife swam to the left side, and they saw 2 nursing sharks there. And it was the first time that my son saw a nursing shark there. There are reef sharks apparently, but then again, I'm happy only to see small fish. I don't like to see big fish looking at me. So I normally stay a bit closer to the shore.
Yeah, I laid down one time watching a nurse shark underneath in a cutout in a large a wall. And because they always had the theory, that which was considered fact for decades and decades and decades, that if a shark stopped swimming, it would die. Now that's true in the open ocean, but then they found out that certain species of sharks are smart enough where they could be like in a crevice or something, and they can just lay there and not be swimming because there's enough of an ocean current to flow the water through their gills where they get enough oxygen, and because they're not exerting themselves, they can basically stay in one spot and they don't die. So that kind of threw a monkey wrench in the long thought theory that any shark that's not moving all the time would basically suffocate and die. So they're smarter than people think.
That's correct. Yeah.
They have been alive for more than 500 million years. So
something like that. Yeah.
So Greg was asking what type of pigeon is that one, Luis?
What type of, sorry?
Pigeon.
The pigeon.
Yes.
Oh, well, it's the
Speaking.
bridled quail dove.
Yes.
Now, this is in a different island. It's like 15 minutes flying from St. Martin. It's also part of the Dutch Caribbean area. It's the shortest commercial airport in the world.
Oof.
It's
So
1,304 feet, if I remember,
it
400
looks a little bit
meters.
sketchy.
You
Yeah,
better have good brakes on that airplane.
yeah, but they are Canadian built, so that they are good. We flew with the Havilland Twin Otter, and it was quite an interesting approach. My wife took a video from behind where the pilots were, and I was looking it from further behind. And it was quite a funny approach because you fly towards the hill of the coming from the left, the hill of the island, and then my wife said that she was concerned that we were flying towards the mountain. Yeah, but they have to turn at the last moment to land, of course. And they're not always able to land here because of the crosswinds.
Oof.
We were quite lucky because we could come in on one day in the morning. Later on that afternoon, all the flights were cancelled,
Oh.
and we were leaving 2 days later. And in the morning, the flights were cancelled, but we were leaving in the afternoon, and our flight was able to arrive and take off. So we were twice lucky, let's say, because it was quite windy and with bad weather as well.
Any
Yeah,
effort in
more here from
eradicating, Luis? Any effort in eradicating those mongoose?
Well, they are so. We've seen the first few days we didn't see a single mongoose, and then the last 4 or 5 days, there was one day we saw even 4 or 5 of them. I don't know what they eat nowadays. Well, this picture, in the meantime, this is a great place where we stop almost every day when you can to get some juice. And this is in the French side of the island. It's funny because the island of St. Martin had a French side and a Dutch side. But everybody there in the island speaks English. And the north side they speak English and French, and in the south side, some people speak Dutch, but it's mainly English that everybody speaks. So we have French restaurants. Talking about French restaurants, still, Gustav. And the north side, and in the south side, you have some kind of more Dutch or more American style restaurants. In the south, they use the dollar. In the north, they use the dollar or the euro. So it's for us, it's quite convenient to pay in the north side because there are no added bank costs because we technically are in France, so we can use
Wow.
the European bank system.
Wow.
But it's a funny combination. The island is quite
Small.
you hear 4 or 5 languages every day. It's quite funny.
Well, I got to, let's see, let me get back to our regular screen here.
Yeah.
And I have to take a minute break to bring the dog outside. Gustavo, are you in good shape?
Yes.
Why don't, okay, you have it there on the screen. I'm going to load this up on the screen so everybody can see it. And I'm going to have to run downstairs quick and come back, but don't wait for me. You can start the discussion.
Okay, I will.
Okay, so I will get your material up here, and you guys, we'll turn it over to Gustavo to talk about these slides, and I will be back as soon as I can.
Okay, and I cannot see you guys, so you need to tell me if you can see the title slide.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So
Yeah.
this small presentation is about train travel in Japan, correct? And particularly about the bullet train, the Shinkansen, and the Narita Express. It was wonderful to be there and do some of the traveling in the trains, correct? And so I put a couple of presentations, a couple of slide here. So, uh, Shinkansen is the Japan bullet train, and it's a high-speed service at the fastest and most convenient way to travel in Japan. So once you land in whatever of the international airport, then once you are there, uh, in my opinion, this is the way to go. Correct. Um, each line has its own distinctive train type, as well as a dedicated track, so it doesn't compete with the local, regional, shorter length trains. Correct. And of course, as you know, it travels at great speed, correct? So the geography of Japan is that is long, is very conducive to have all these different lines, correct? So on the left side, you see all the different lines that there is, correct? So all the way up to the Hokkaido Island in the north, and that train line goes under the sea, all the way south into Nagasaki, correct? And so it was wonderful. I actually was very happy. Part of the entertainment is actually the travel, not the inconvenience. Doesn't have the inconvenience of traveling by plane. Right? Was first introduced in 1964. Probably one of the best developed or the best developed train system in the world. Correct? It uses we use a single individual trip tickets instead of the JR pass, which in the past used to be very attractive. We actually uh, travel on what they call the green card, which are the first class car, and it's a great value. It's very uh, uh, compared with let's say what you pay here in the U.S. for a airline ticket, okay? Even a regular economy class ticket, it is fantastic. So out of all these lines, the one that we visited was the uh, 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 we went first to Kyoto, correct, which is a Tokaido line, and you will see that the actual trains are not so called by the destinations, or not only by the destination, but also by the different line, correct, which is this one here in blue. So when you're traveling there, you need to know which is the line that you need to make your reservation. You obviously you go to the ticket counter and you ask for, hey, I want to go to the city, and they will put you in the correct line. But then when you have to navigate in the terminal, you have to know which is the line that you need to take. Right? So we took the train here on the Tokaido Shinkansen, which is this deep blue line here. And then when we wanted to go to the north into the area around Nagano, then we come back all the way to Tokyo and then exchange train in Tokyo all the way to Nagano, because this loop here is not yet completed. Okay? There is a portion here in between the Nagano, between the Shinkansen uh, Tokaido and the Shinkansen Hokuriku that has not been completed. Okay? But it's fantastic. Right? So let me give you let's see whether these work. So I show you some of the kind of modern trains, and let's try here a couple of things. So you will see here some of the trains. Let's see. You let me guys know if the videos will play. So this is taken with the iPhone. Can
Yeah,
you?
playing.
So you see all these aerodynamic uh, trains, and you can see here the train on this side. Obviously, everything is very well marked, but you have to watch, for to be on the right platform at the right time. So it could be a little bit stressful here. So this is the train that we were going for, this Nozomi, which is a type of the type of train on that Tokaido line. So you need to know the name of the line that you are, which in this case service Kyoto and Osaka, then the name of the train type that you are. They are very okay. And then here I put some details about the train type. So this is the Nozomi. Oh, I'm sorry. 700 series, S series. Okay, has a maximum speed of 332 miles per hour, which is about 206 kilometers. Say here, it's a mistake here. It's a kilometer per hour, which is about 206 miles per hour. And this particular model of train, correct, was introduced in the year 2020. Now they have Japan is very mountainous, okay? So there's a lot of tunnels. So one of the characteristics of all these trains is that they have to be very aerodynamic because they don't want to create a piston effect going through the tunnels. Right? So here is a little bit of another video of going through one of the bridges. So you can see at 300 kilometers per hour how the landscape passes by very quickly, but it's very entertaining. All right. So the other. So let me. Okay. Let's jump here. So let me go to the next slide. So the other one that we took is the Okiruku Shinkansen. We were going to the Karuizawa from Tokyo, so we had to come back from Tokyo. And here you will see this again. Here we were in the Hokuriku line service to Nagano. We were stopping in this other city of Karizawa, okay, but we have to then um, get to this E7 type of train, and you can see this line has its own characteristic train, and I will play the video for that train. This is a beautiful train, more traditional style, very similar to some of the trains in Europe, in France, and in Germany. And you can see all the train lines are protected by these barriers, and they only open once once you are aligned between the door that you have to go and the car that you need to go. Correct. So you need to watch all these things. So uh, it was very well organized, but when you do it for the first time, it can be a little bit daunting. So here you can see on this train on a vertical. Again, this train travels a little bit lower speed. It goes only to about 275 kilometers per hour, 170 miles per hour. Okay? And these are slightly older train, and it was introduced in 2013. But also, I thought that you guys wanted to see a little bit of the landscape of Japan, and then here on the right side, you can see how the cars look from inside. This is the green car, okay, and you can see you travel very comfortable here in this green car. You have two seats and two seats, which is very convenient. Plenty of space, so you can put your luggage up there. Although you can make in some trains reservation for putting the luggage. You basically assign one of the seats that has some space at the back. So let me go to the next slide. Of course, these are not the only trains that you need to take. These modern trains. We also took the Narita Express, which goes from several of the stations in Tokyo to the Narita Airport. Right? And that train is also a fast train, but it's dedicated uh, uh, to service the airport, right? Uh, and, uh, and it's a different type of train. It's a E259. It was introduced in 1991, and we use it twice, correct? Coming and going from Tokyo, and you can see here that train. It has a completely different profile. And here on the middle, I have as we were traveling out of Tokyo, then I managed to get a photo of this observation tower or the telecommunication tower, the Tokyo sky tree that I chose on the photos last time. Right. So anyway, that's what I put together. So obviously, we can do some Q&A, but it was fantastic in itself. The for me, the traveling in these trains, this modern train, was an attraction, right? And I like it so much that I even managed to get a couple of things here. Let me show you. So this actually was my wife bought me some of these as we were going out of Japan. Some in the store. We have a couple of models of the train that we have in Japan to display. So this is the one that goes to in the Tokaido line, and the other beautiful train. She, we managed also to get one of those models.
So how does it feel when you're going almost 300 miles an hour on some of
It
those
feels like
trains?
nothing, Jeff, because it's so quiet, so smooth. Correct. You just only notice when there are things close to the track line, correct? But while you're photographing things that are far, but then you get there in an hour and a half, correct? Now, interesting enough, and John mentioned last week he's going to to travel now in some of the Chinese uh, um, high-speed train from Hong Kong into Beijing when he goes to Beijing, correct? But and you probably remember, many of you remember because we're all roughly the same age, correct? Remember when I first got interested as a kid in science, we talk about these maglev um, uh, magnetic levitation trains, right? And those are coming into Japan, right? So in that figure that I show, so Japan will have the first of these relatively long. There is some demonstrations, I think, in Shanghai of some short, few kilometers long magnetic levitation train. But Japan will have the first, I think, it's in year 2027, the big train about 200 kilometers to be the first magnetic levitation train. So that in itself is great.
Well, the thing is, I'm surprised that, I mean, I thought that magnetic material was kind of in short supply.
Well, they use this. Actually, obviously, like we all do when we get interested to something, you start reading, looking at YouTube, and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the main issue, Jeff, is because they had to create such a strong magnetic fields to levitate the train. Correct? Uh, Actually, the trains only get levitated fully. They have some wheels once they get to speed, correct? But they have alternating magnetic fields that is what it propagates. It looks like some of those magnetic cannons, correct? They propagate in the same fashion. The bigger problem is actually isolating the passengers and the environment from the strong magnetic field.
Yeah.
Correct, but so that is. That is fantastic, and this is for you, Mr. Luis. This is for me the most beautiful of the Shinkansen trains. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the one that go to Hokkaido.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Okay.
I saw pictures of it.
Yes. So anyway, guys, see, we do a little bit of everything here. Uh,
Yeah, that's good.
this is good.
Gustavo, I took the Narita Express when we landed and went to Tokyo, but
Yes,
we ended up in the wrong carriage because we couldn't read Japanese, so we had to move.
exactly. Yeah, no, that's what I said. It's a little bit stressing. So when you land, jet
Oh,
lag,
we felt
then
quite good. We
you have
didn't
to
feel
navigate.
stressed at all. It was like, oh, we have to move. Okay, so we just moved.
Yeah.
See,
Locally,
now
I think
you did trains, we have to do, like that movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So you did the
exactly.
trains, we got to do planes, we got to do automobiles.
Yeah, true. What is confusing for me was not Narita Express, but the local trains. because I didn't take the fast ones.
Okay.
But we stayed 4 days in Tokyo and we did everything by train.
Yes.
And then the first time you look to the map, you have no idea where you are.
No, that is confusing. You see, that's what I did. I did the long trips in train, but the short trips inside the city with Uber and taxis.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, we did it the other way. So we did but once you get used to the way the map works and how do you pay for a ticket, once you get that out of the way, then it's actually a piece of cake.
And I don't know how long was it since you did that, but I tell you, it's a
Last
Google
year.
Map. How many years ago?
It was last year.
Okay, because what I found
Google
out
Maps
is
helps. Yeah,
Google
indeed.
Map is
Google Maps
fantastic.
helps.
It tells you go here, go to this platform. I mean, such a detailed description what you need to do. But as I mentioned last week, Japan is in that respect is like the future. Correct? But it can be confusing. My wife was always a little bit stressed out because in addition to you have to navigate to the right platform, to the right train, to the right line. Okay, make sure that you have the great destination. Of course, you're carrying luggage as well, correct? So and for us, we carry luggage and camera equipment.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
And they came back with 2 extra trains.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are those the trains that you just add water and then they go to full size?
Yeah, I hope so. But we here in the United States, I think we probably will get our first. Actually, it will be a Shinkansen system between Houston and Dallas, Randall.
Hmm.
We are so much behind Europe and Japan now. Luis, having traveled in Europe, correct? Many years ago, I understand the problem with Europe is, man, some of the uh, bad elements in some of the train stations, correct? You have to be
Yeah,
really careful with your luggage.
it depends
Unfortunately,
on the town, yes, and not all the fast tracks are connected
yeah,
properly. I don't know how it is in Paris, but you had to take a very dodgy train from one station to the other.
yeah.
Uh,
Even on the
that I didn't like.
Schiphol, in the Schiphol train to Amsterdam on the Hague, I that's a train that I will take my luggage between my legs.
Yeah, but most trains you don't have much space with your luggage. I mean, the last few years we always go by train to Amsterdam and then take
Yes,
the plane. But we just getting rid of the luggage is always
it's a
you
problem.
always occupy somebody else's room with your
Yes,
luggage. There is no way out. I mean, you just have to accept it as a fact and just be friendly.
yes.
Well,
You can
thanks.
never put your luggage in the properly in the train, but it's very convenient because you don't have to go it by car. And if the trains run, which is when was it yesterday, 2 days ago, we had the first snows in the Netherlands, and then the trains typically don't
Wow,
run with the first snow.
wow. That doesn't happen regularly there.
The
So
last few years is happening less and less, but the temperature is going up again, and then all the snow will be gone, and then we'll see what happens. I'll be
and the
back there
amazing
in a couple of days.
thing, this fast speed train in Japan. I mean, so sometimes they on the same line you have a train going every 5 minutes, right? So they are going 300
Oh,
miles an hour, and they are only like 5 minutes between each train. It's what they have done that is incredible.
yeah,
I could see though why you'd be, obviously you had never been there before, and to
Exactly.
try to look at the schedules and the maps and figure everything out, and then, I mean, everything is, as they say, everything is foreign to you. It puts you on edge, until you've done it for a while, and then you
Exactly.
relax a little bit. But
yeah.
Part
That's
of the
it.
fun.
That's it.
you had to be kind of nervous in the beginning.
Yeah, part of the fun. But it's part of the
Yeah, it
Part
fun.
of
is.
the fun.
It is.
Part
It
of the
is.
fun.
After
It,
the day and a half, correct? Then you say, okay, I can do it. Then you,
Yeah, that's true. I actually rented a car, Gustavo, in Tokyo Central. I rented a
oh
car from
wow,
there,
that
and then I left from the central Tokyo. I said, let's do it all the way. I mean, what's the point of going to Japan and not trying? I'm not
it's
going to I'm not going to go to the edge of Tokyo and then rent a car. Let's rent a car in central Tokyo. But it was a
wow.
Sunday, so it was rather quiet. So leaving Tokyo was actually quite easy.
That's an adventure.
But the roads have the signs in Japanese, but also in, let's say, the Latin names, so you can read the.
Yes,
Well, we had the navigation as well, but even if you don't have it, you have it in Japanese and written with, let's say, our alphabet.
yeah, no, it's definitely things are a little bit easier now with
Yeah,
all that. But as Luis, as I was telling last week, the I definitely, if I go to the more rural parts, I will rent a car, and and
yeah,
uh, and that would be again another part of the adventure, correct? But you go to the destination, and then when you are in that destination, then you rent a car because
yeah.
it's going to be less crowded, correct? Now driving in Tokyo, man, I take my hats to you because
No, no, but the funny thing with Japan, the speed limits is everywhere quite low.
not
So
for the
it's
tax,
sorry? Yeah, no,
not
no,
for the
but I
taxis.
went to the area. Okay, not, but I went to the area of Nagano because we wanted to go hiking and to the mountains during the
Yes,
summer. We were there in the warmest period. We were in
yes,
August, so we kind of needed a car to get to those places,
yes,
and
yes,
that was not difficult.
yes,
In fact, for more than a week, because we went to west of Tokyo and we went to the north of Japan, but not to Hokkaido. And for about a week, we only saw, like, say, Japanese people, and the ones that could speak English were very curious and very willing to speak English to us
exactly.
and asking what we were doing there. And then we said we came to the beach. Oh, okay, that was me as well. They said.
Yeah.
Was quite funny.
No, but
But it was
definitely,
just curious to see, let's say, Westerners there.
yeah, but definitely, I will do that too if I were to go there. I obviously you visit the cities, but if I go to the countryside, I will rent a car.
Yeah. But still, you see a lot of people with camera gear there.
Oh yeah, yeah. You see,
A lot of DSLRs. A lot of DSLRs you would
yeah,
see
yes.
there.
Not so much the modern stuff, but
Yeah.
yes, everybody is. Anyway, uh, that's it, guys. So hopefully we'll get some trains here finally in the United States. By the way, that the problem here is the continental United States, correct? There is in terms of efficiency, correct? The car versus the train versus the versus airplane, correct? Our distances are too big. I think if you are traveling in excess of 800 miles, which sometimes we have to do here, then the train is not as efficient, or not the current generation of train, correct? And building those high-speed tracks, correct? Dedicated
It
tracks
takes
like they
time.
have in Japan, is crazy.
It takes time.
But in Europe, of course, it makes sense. If they do it locally, like I think the trains that they plan for California, and hopefully they will get the permits to do it. Or I think Texas probably, if they can get that Texas triangle, Randall, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, that for Texas will be fantastic.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fight not to have that.
Yeah. Which is so silly, but it
People
is what
don't
it
like
is.
change. People don't like change, man. And politicians get involved, so that's half the problem there.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
in Alberta, the premier is talking about the train going between Calgary and Edmonton, but
That
she
will
has
make
a
sense.
choice. She either puts two more lanes on the highway going up there, or she puts in a train system.
That will make sense for Calgary to Alberta for that
Yeah,
kind of mountain corridor.
Yeah, and then she's also thinking about going over towards Banff and Jasper. Not actually Banff and Lake
Well,
Louise, not Jasper.
but all the
Okay.
cities, David, all the cities in that area of Alberta, and they were it's Alberta. I mean, they were all developed along the rail lines, correct?
Yeah, and we used to have rail passengers between Calgary and Edmonton, and it's about 30 years ago they stopped it for some reason. And I had a friend of mine 15 years ago. He approached the government and told them, if you would buy the land, we would do the rest, finance it, build it, whatever. And the province never took him up on it, but the province bought the land for the stations at both ends, which
Yes,
they've owned for the last 15 years. And now they're finally decided that they're going to do something in the next 15.
exactly.
Yeah. By the time they start projects, and get done talking about it for 20 years, most of us aren't around when they finally do it.
Well, yeah. And the guy that I knew, he used to be a banker and he was doing this, so he was fairly well connected. And I was talking to him about it, and I mentioned to him he should design it for 500 kilometers an hour, and run it at 3, because you can always speed it up. Afterwards, if you design it for 5, but if you design it for 3, you can't speed it up to 5.
Yeah, it's almost a cultural thing, correct? Europe has been train center for many, many years, correct? The trains in Germany, and the Eurotunnel was made with trains in mind,
Yeah,
correct?
but that one is very handy because we always go by trying to visit my daughter, which is living in London for the moment.
Exactly.
So we drive to Brussels, and then in 2 hours we drive through the tunnel, and we are in
Exactly.
central London.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've gone through the tunnel the year it opened.
Exactly. No, it makes perfect sense in Europe, correct? With all the cities being there, and yeah. So the first for Martin, some of the first Japanese train, correct, resemble some of the German trains, correct, post-war on the high speed, and the French train, which also were high speed. But the culture in Japan, obviously, they do like trains, right? So they have built this tremendous network. I mean, what I showed you was the main Shinkansen line, but there is, like Luis is telling you, I mean, everything is connected with train, correct?
Everything is connected. If it's a metro or a train, sometimes it's just semantics because they're all connected.
Yep.
Well, thanks for putting that pitch together and taking the time to do that, as always.
Yeah, thank you, Gustavo.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Before you're going to end up being like the unofficial travel bureau for the channel here.
No, we got a lot of people
Between
here.
you and Luis, you'll have to set up like a travel agency for the rest of us and say, now, guys, this is our recommendation for the month, that you go here, and this is why.
Yes.
I can prepare one later for Thailand next year.
Thailand.
Very good. Well, you need to tell us more about Saint Martin, correct? I think. By the way, Luis, Martin is going to Martinique at one point.
It's not that far, relatively speaking, from here. Yeah, but there they speak more French, less English. That's what I understand from talking to the people here.
Yeah.
This island is quite specific because it's the smallest area on Earth with two different. The smallest island where two different countries were governing, let's say.
Yeah,
It was the French and the Dutch for more than 300 years. Even during, in the meantime, they had wars in between, but here it was always kind of.
But
What?
this island has such a beautiful bird life, correct? So I'm sure that you're going to wow us with a lot of these pictures. The ones in
Well,
your
it's not that. I mean, we saw basically all the birds in 3 or 4 days. They are so far to the, let's say, I think Puerto Rico, Cuba has a lot more bird life, Jamaica than these smaller islands here at the edge.
yes,
That's for sure. And there are not many other reptiles and so on. In this smaller island of Saba, that small airport, there is one species of snake. We did see 7 of those, so we were able to take a few pictures. So I had this short list of everything to look for. So I do have a lot of pictures. I have a lot of pictures, but it's not like going to the tropics, let's say South
no, no,
America. There is a complete. It's a lot more relaxing because you see a lot of the same things again and again. So you have more
exactly.
opportunities to take better pictures. And today I didn't even take my long lens because we were going kayaking to another island. So I thought, this time I don't leave it. I just leave it. I might pack it up already
So,
for the day after tomorrow.
so what did you bring to Saint Martin with you?
I took the Z8 with the 500 PF because Jeff likes it. So
I always loved that lens. Yeah,
no,
It's Gustavo's fault that I don't have it anymore.
yeah, it's not always Gustavo's fault. Yeah,
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 but
Gustavo made him buy a 600.
yeah. Gustavo made me buy the 600 and get rid of the 500.
yeah. And then I took my Tokina 100 build for the macro.
Okay,
Um, because there are like a few tree frogs. I hear them; they're singing it all the time.
okay.
There is a local one and two kind of introduced, or they came uh, with uh, with with fruit and everything from other islands. So we saw 2 species, and then the biggest decision was that to go to that little island, Saba, we could only take 5 kilograms of
Wow.
on a backpack. 5 kilograms. What is it? 10 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's not that much. So my 500 PF with the Z8 was almost that on the
Okay.
backpack. So we had to choose between clothes or gear. So I went for the gear.
Exactly. Hey, we are photographers. We go naked.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
We go naked. Whoa. This is a G-rated show. It's a G-rated show.
Yeah. No, but it was good fun.
at
So I
least we
was
are behind the
wondering.
camera, Jeff.
Yeah,
So
but
I
your lens isn't that big, Gustavo.
Exactly.
so I took the on that flight. I took the Z8 with the 500 PF because that was
So
decided.
you brought only
So
one body?
I took my old D70-100 on
Okay.
my because you were allowed, say, a kind of you were allowed an umbrella on the side, a couple of books, and a coat. So I put the 70-100 on my coat,
Okay.
on, and then on the other side of the coat I had the flash, and I sneaked the 100 mil in the backpack, and then the backpack weighed 5.5 kilos. And I was wondering, are they going to make a fuss about it? But nobody checked anything.
Okay.
So that was an easy one. It was quite funny because it's a small destination. That only 9 people are allowed, although the aircraft can carry more. I don't know how many more, but I
Okay.
found out they only take 9 maximum because of the size of the runway.
Wow.
So the pilot actually comes to you in the terminal, greets you, "Hello, I'm your pilot," and you walk with him through the terminal. They say pick up any seat. We have the seat number, but they say just sit anywhere you want.
And you say that was a twin otter.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah.
I used to fly those.
Yeah, and then the pilot said to us, there are no guarantees we can land. We're going to try.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to hear.
No, my wife didn't like those twin otters, I tell you.
But it's
Yeah.
all very open because we all can see what the pilots are doing. So I ended up for that island because we were looking for snakes. I ended up not taking the macro because of the macro. I thought like I cannot approach them if
Yeah,
you
you don't
see
want to
them.
be that close.
Yeah, so I took the old DX 18 to 300 again out of the box because it's very light, and we ended up finding quite a few snakes. Yeah, and with that light gear, and we could hike. It was rainy, very sweaty weather. We were all on the way back. We were all looking to each other like, please don't, because we were all sweaty. It was raining, it was humid, it was everything, and we were hiking. We had umbrellas and everything, and then on the way back, in Saba, they look at you and they say, okay, this is what you have, and nobody looked. So I didn't have to put my backpack on inside of the other one to carry it as one. No, I just entered with two backpacks and nobody said anything. But the weight that I took was slightly over the limit, and I thought, well, I have one of these small pouches. I can always put one of those camera, well, the camera combination there as an accessoire, and no, for them it was no problem. So 5 kilos, and it was more 6 kilos than 5 kilos, but still it's not much if you want to carry two cameras and two lenses. You have to take
Yeah. All right.
just a pajama, a few clothes, and that's it. So I don't think about it, and no extra shoes because that wasn't the issue. We were going to take extra shoes, but it was bad weather, and we were also wet on the way back, so we were happy to go back.
So
Gear
how
is
long
more
did you
Nice
stay
important,
there?
tropical experience.
gear is more important than shoes or clothes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So how long did you stay in that island?
Just 2 nights.
Okay.
It's not far from here because we thought would be like because it's so small and there are no beaches, so you go there for snorkeling or diving
Okay. Okay.
or purely hiking because the forest is pristine. There are
Wow.
huge trees. Here was everything cut down, but there because it was a volcano with hardly any accessible roads until there is one little harbor. So that means that nobody ever cut the forest down. So
Very
the
good.
forest is really, really lush, very unlike this one. So people go there only for hiking or for the sea, but not to lie at the beach. So there are not many. Everybody knows each other there. All the taxi drivers, they said it, and it's true. You are not ripped off by a taxi driver there because they all have the same charts and they all charge you the same.
Exactly.
There is one road, so everybody knows each other. I left my head on one of the taxi on the way back on the way to the airport. We were there well on time, and then another taxi driver came to me and said, "You left your head on the other taxi,"
Oh, well.
because he told me, "Oh, okay, so don't worry, you'll be back in half an hour next." So after a while, the other one came back, and I went to him and got my head back.
That's funny.
And really everybody, because we were on the other side of the island, and we were looking like, how can we get a taxi here? I have no idea. So I went to one of the local pubs. I looked to this guy and I said, he seems to be a local guy. And he said, I asked him about a taxi. Yeah, you have to phone for a taxi. I said, well, I don't have a phone number, so I'll take care. I'll arrange one taxi for you. But he was one of the fire brigades from the airport. Found out
Okay.
later. The thing with small islands and in areas where not many people live, if they start talking to you, they're talking to you for a long time.
Exactly.
And they tell their personal life in 5 minutes. It's unbelievable.
Exactly. I need to go.
Yeah, no, because the taxi needs to come from the other side. So he said, "We'll be here in 20 minutes. That's okay." Okay. So I bought him a beer. and we talked for 20 minutes until the taxi arrived. And then we go to the airport, and then we saw a picture of this guy in the airport because he's one of the fire brigade. So of course, all the fire brigade was there in the picture. So we found him again. Oh, that's him. Yeah. It's such a small community. It's really funny.
Very good.
And although it's Dutch territory, they all speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the highest point of the Dutch kingdom. So we climbed the mountains just to get the picture.
Okay. But there is no active volcanoes, correct, in that island?
No. So there are like 2 bakeries, a few hotels, and a couple of restaurants. So if you're there, you always find the same people. So 2 days is enough.
Very good.
It's quite funny. It's quite funny. Everything needs to be brought in, of course. And but I realize that people here also go island hopping from even the locals. They come from one island to the other just for a few days. So a few people from St. Kitts that were here for a few days when the same place where we were staying. And there are basically daily flights to the Netherlands and to Paris because of the both connections to the Netherlands and to France. They use the same airport,
Okay.
which is on the former Dutch side. So it's a big connection. It's quite a funny place to be. And you have French cooks everywhere on the Dutch side or on the French side. If the food is good, you look around and think that their accent is kind of French. Oh, no. So there's a French cook here. It's very funny.
Beautiful.
But the wildlife, you see the wildlife. Okay, for the sea. My son has an Olympus stuff and a GoPro. It takes a lot of pictures with those. And I'm going to get his GoPro the next time I come here, because even I can take pictures of the fish here. They're not very, at least the small ones.
Yeah, you can use it underwater, correct?
Sorry?
You can use it underwater, the GoPro.
Yeah, I've used it in Europe many times, in Portugal or in Greece. You take it underwater. I bought the first one because of its macro capabilities, and it's good against. In Costa Rica, I thought it's running a lot, and after I bought it, I realized that you can actually take it underwater. And once that was known within the family, I never touched that camera again. Everybody wanted to use that camera to take pictures underwater. But they are good cameras. They focus well underwater if you're close enough. It's for a small camera. It's amazing what you can do. For better pictures, for a bit more distance, then you need all of those things like what's scuba Razi that once explained.
Yeah.
That's really complicated and expensive, complicated, and you have to swim at the same time, so it's difficult.
It's a very different ball of water.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're gonna move here to we got 1 hour left, so I'm gonna jump here and get into the rest of the rumor stuff so we could talk about the global sensors a little bit before we.
And Terry wanted to talk about the new software updates, rumors on the Nikon side.
Well, the only one that I know about is for the ZF, and I have not looked into what it actually does. I mean, because I have a ZF, but I haven't updated mine yet. I don't think it was anything.
He was talking the ones that had not been announced yet. I think
for the Z9,
Z9,
it's 5.1.
5.1.
Yeah, that wasn't much of anything, though, either.
Yes.
Well, it had nothing to do with autofocus improvements.
Well, it's been seen in the wild, but it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah, it's not released,
So we really don't know what's there.
I think we talked about it a little bit from whatever was spilled out on Nikon Rumors last week, but wasn't really a lot. It was just a few.
But Matt Erwin did a very good video speculating about what is going, correct? And I think it was Con and even Matt insinuated that is probably coming pretty soon here in December because it's associated with that power zoom lens that is coming.
Yeah.
So anyway, And I just mentioned it because I didn't want Terry to think that we were ignoring him. I knew that at one point we needed to talk about a little bit. But let's go to the.
Yeah, last week. It was just a very casual mention on Nikon rumors and where they saw that the camera had the 5.10 on it, and there wasn't really a big discussion about it at their end for me to really share with anybody. But yeah, you got the power zoom lens. We still don't really know when that lens is going to actually come out. No one has actually said when it's going to come out or how much it's going to cost. I don't think it's going to be cheap. I don't think it's going to be cheap.
For sure.
Well, it's got a gold ring on it, and you got to pay for that gold.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we'll. I mean, if I stumble across something, that we will bring it up, whether on the next show or whatever, once we find out more information. But there hasn't been a lot of talk about it. It's all people guessing, and yeah, but nothing in terms of 6 months ago. It seems like 6 months ago. I'm probably exaggerating when Nikon rumors made it out like the Z9 was going to have another fairly beefy autofocus improvement on the Z9, and which I can't imagine there's a lot more improvement you're going to get out of that. But we never saw that happen, and then it didn't get brought up anymore. So then everything has been just little dribs and drabs here or there. Stuff having to do with the new cloud service and trying to get that problem fixed so that more cameras can work with their cloud service. And I mean, right now you've only got the Z50 Mark II and you got the Z6 III, and then maybe the ZF will be soon, but even that's dribs and drabs, and I don't know how many people will use the cloud service, but
No.
I have no idea. I don't know what they've calculated in their minds, what they think they're going to get for people that are going to use that service. But I mean, I think in terms of being able to update your firmware easier or whatever, that's kind of a good thing. But I mean, beyond that, I mean, I don't find it difficult to update the firmware now.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think what you'll find is that the day that the new lens is out in the wild, Nikon will drop all the firmware updates.
For the different cameras.
For all the cameras.
We Speed 7.
Yep. Yep, and it all comes at the same time.
And later, Jeff, let's go to the discussion about Canon and the global shutter dilemma. But I have a picture that I'm sharing now, which you show later, that Jim sent us last week when we had the super moon that he took with his 800 millimeter and plus a 2-time converter. But let's do the discussion on the Canon.
Okay. This is
before the discussion. I have to leave because tomorrow we are going to do some snorkeling again, and I want to survive tomorrow.
We feel so bad.
Sorry.
Such a difficult life you lead, my friend.
I know. It's not easy. It's not easy.
How do you manage to do it? You're so hard done by.
I have a lot of good colleagues for which I can't swap duties. Anyway, on Monday I'm flying back, and then I'm working. Monday we fly back. Tuesday we arrive, and then Wednesday I'm working. But I'm not working live traffic, so it's
okay.
I have an office duty, so that's good.
Well,
if I'm not on holidays, I'm working all the time. That's the thing to remember.
We have to work for a living.
Yeah, you're still young.
Exactly.
Well, have a safe trip, and it's great that you're able to see family and do things with them, and that's
we have to follow your kids everywhere they go, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
And when
you never get rid of them. You never get rid of them.
Exactly.
No. But that's good. That's fine. That's good. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
Good. Enjoy the show. You guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Have fun. Be safe.
Thank you.
Watch out for Jaws.
Yeah. So the information here comes from Canon Rumors. So this isn't me talking. This is me regurgitating. But David will be back in a minute. So this is from Canon Rumors. So they had a commentary where they said that EOS R1 autofocus, what sets it apart from the EOS R5 Mark II, and they said it seems an advancement in technology inside the EOS R1's image sensor is being overlooked when comparing it to the modern dual pixel autofocus stacked sensors in the EOS R5 Mark II and the EOS R3. It said we've had a lot of isn't the autofocus the same type of comments whenever the EOS R1 and the EOS R5 Mark II are brought up in a comparison conversation, which is going to be in an inevitable comparison. So they said with the advent, going way back now, of the EOS 70D, Canon at that time announced the dual pixel sensors. This allowed the sensor to directly autofocus with the speed and precision of a DSLR autofocus sensor. The sensor worked by taking the pixel and splitting it in half, thus the term dual pixel. Canon then could read the sensor and measure the phase difference between each half of the pixel to determine if the feature is in focus and if not, how far away it was. However, they have a problem with dual pixel sensors is that all the pixels are orientated in the same orientation. So this gives Canon mirrorless cameras an autofocus blind spot, they're calling it. They said the camera can focus on either horizontal or vertical features when the camera orientation is parallel to the feature. For instance, your R5, your R5 Mark II will struggle to lock onto horizontal features when the camera is in landscape orientation. This is because on all of Canon's dual pixel autofocus sensors up to the R1, all the DPAF pixels were orientated in the same direction. But that's no longer the case with the R1 sensor. They changed the orientation of one of the two green pixels, allowing edge detection to now occur on any orientation of the edge that you are attempting to focus on. So it allows the R1 to focus reliably on any feature regardless of its orientation. I'm sure you can see the benefit of this, as the last thing you want in fast-paced sports photography is to have the sensor simply not recognize a feature. So there is a difference between the autofocus capability of the R1 versus the R3 and the R5 Mark II. And most people think they're all the same, but they're not. But it's kind of like, where you have when you had on the cross type sensors, okay, on a digital SLR, because if you didn't have the cross type sensors, all the other ones were orientated the same way as well. It was the same kind of problem. If you had the cross type sensors, which unfortunately were usually concentrated in the center of the frame, that would allow you to focus on something that, whether it was vertically orientated or horizontally orientated.
Yes.
So it was kind of the problem started with the DSLR era, So moving on from that, there was an article in Canon Rumors titled "A Global Shutter Sensor Could the Next 3 Series," in other words, the R3, if they do an R3 Mark II or whatever, could the next 3 Series camera be the place to introduce a global shutter sensor? So I found a few comments interesting that I thought I'd share regarding what Canon and Canon Rumors, kind of like both of them talking here, regarding what they considered the deficiencies of the global sensor. And of course, because they talked about global sensors in general, they had to bring up, or chose to bring up, the sensor used in the Sony A9 III. So this is them, not me. It says in early 2024, Sony delivered the global shutter-based A9 III, and it took a while, but the results from DxO are in. They say, and I will bring that up on the screen because I'll get to it. I'll get to that conversation in a second, and I will share the table with you. Get a screen capture of it, and I will bring it up on the screen. Okay, and so they go on to say, okay. In early 2024, Sony delivered the global shutter-based A9 III, and it took a while, but the results from DxO are in. They say, I didn't really expect much better from the A9 III, though, and this is true, it wasn't the first full-frame global shutter sensor. Okay, that already existed. Okay, Red had it too. It was, though, the first full-frame global shutter camera. And in the ultimate need for speed, the A9 III certainly delivers, but there's a cost, and that's across the board image quality and the base ISO. If you look at the results, you see that the A9 III scores low on both color reproduction and also dynamic range. It should also be noted that the A9 III has a base ISO of 250. So the high ISO results more or less catch up because at higher ISOs, the A9 III deficiencies are no longer important. So what we have, and kind of mentioned this earlier from another article I read, what we have is a very narrow focused camera, more so than what people are suggesting for the R1, amusingly. Now they said, but would Canon do this at all? The drop in image quality is high from the R3 to an R3 with a similar global shutter to that in the A9 III. Not to mention removing ISO 100 and having, your ISO range start at 250 removes a lot of utility that the camera may have outside of high ISO fast movement and action shooting. They said this is something that traditionally Canon is very averse to doing, especially the amount of dynamic range and color fidelity that we are talking about here. So they're saying if Canon implements a global shutter, I think they will work on the problems that Sony, for some puzzling reason, decided not to. So that's a little shot, as they say, across the bow. But it is something that we mentioned, is that there, and it was known that camera was going to suffer with dynamic range. You're not going to have the low ISO performance, and so it is a niche camera for a niche market, predominantly professional photographers.
But it's also is the first of a new generation of camera, correct?
Right, but you wait till you hear what comes out soon here.
Okay.
This came from Canon themselves. It said there are negative points and the image quality is affected. Sensitivity management is not very good and the dynamic range is less extensive. They said, and they think we would have difficulty optimizing this because of the very complex structure of this type of sensor. They're saying, if we, Canon, have to integrate this into our flagship product, we want to have complete technology. So then they go on to say Sony Electronics does have better performing global shutter technology, but that was not used in the A9 III. Perhaps cost was a factor, but with the Sony A9 III getting a $1,500 price hike for something, you'd think that would cover increased fabrication complexity costs. And since they didn't go all out, there's hardly any fabrication difference between a normal stack sensor to this global shutter sensor. So don't ask me what Sony users are paying an extra $1,500 for. Once again, this isn't me, this is Canon talking. They go on to say, I would assume that Canon's global shutter sensor will be far more expensive than Sony's because they will work on image quality versus marketing messages.
Wow.
So they're basically saying, yeah, it's one thing to be first out of the gate, and congratulations for Sony, and I congratulated it, and I go, congratulations for being first out of the gate. But just because you're first out of the gate doesn't mean that maybe you didn't come out a little too early with a sensor that had a few too many limitations, They said this. They said that because of this, that Canon may take a considerable amount of time to come out with such a camera. And then they say, just because Sony was the first to put it in a camera really is a little meaningless. Global shutter sensors have been here a while, but it's optimally performing sensors. That's what the industry really needs. Optimally performing sensors. So they say, I do like the benefits of global shutter, and I think Canon or Sony, they failed to mention Nikon in here, which is a bit of a kind of a shocker, but they say they like the benefits of global shutter, and they think Canon or Sony will decide to implement fab methods that lower the image quality loss and improve the costs of these sensors. And once that happens en masse, then we'll see an industry adaptation to sensors and cameras with absolutely no mechanical bits outside of IBIS, as the rest of the internal guts will be all electronic. Normal sensors with mechanical shutters will disappear as yesterday's technology, much like DSLRs did in the past. And they just finished by saying they're all in for that happening sooner than later. So quite a little bit of Sony bashing by the Canon camp in many ways.
Until they come with their own lower shutter, and then it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Well, Gustavo, the 8K sensor that's in the red, that is 33 megabytes or megapixels. So that there's not an awful big difference between 33 and 45 or 47. Actually, it's 50, and because that's what Richie says, it's over 50 because of the IBIS bringing it down. So it's not going to be all that long before the red sensor is up to the same resolution. Well, actually, they do have red cameras that are 12K now, 12 and 16, and they're with global shutter, except it's quite a bit more expensive. So the technology exists. It's just not in a stills camera. It's in motion picture cameras.
Yes.
So this is not new stuff.
No, it's not new stuff, and they what Canon's basically saying is they would not have done what Sony did because they felt that it wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
And they wanted to be first. And it's all marketing stuff, guys. We all know that. Everybody wants to be first at something, right? So okay to them. But hey, you paid $1,500 more for a camera that's only a 24.6 megapixel camera, too. So it's not a high resolution camera. It's got a niche market, theoretic. But I'll tell you, I don't think there's anybody that's shooting a Z9 or a Z8 or R5 II that are all of a sudden feeling they can't take sports photography pictures anymore because the A9 III came out.
No,
That's obviously not true. It's like the world didn't end for everybody else, and all of a sudden everything else isn't junk. And what's interesting is I went and I looked at reviews and comparisons, and I didn't look at 100 of them. I will be honest. Okay, I looked at 2 or 3, but I found 2 or 3 instances where overall review comparisons between the R1 and the A9 III, that in probably 2/3 of the cases, the R1 was considered the better camera of the two. I think more because it wasn't as niche. You know what I'm saying? And then I actually saw a review where they said the Z9 was better than the A9 III. So if irregardless of the brand, if depending on how you shoot and what you shoot, you get the best tool for what you do.
yeah, of course.
And in some cases, it'll be a Canon, and in some cases, it'll be a Sony, and in some cases, it'll be a Nikon. In some cases, it might be a Fuji. So, I mean, there are so many great cameras out there right now that if you were starting from scratch, which most of us in our universe here have been tied in with a brand,
Exactly.
and maybe we have a couple different brands that we use, but we've been tied in with a brand for a long time. And it's very hard to throw away all your lenses or give away all your lenses and start all over again from scratch, unless you're fortunate enough to, be financially able to do
I mean, look at the comment here from Albert. Obviously, Albert is not a fan of these global shutters, okay? And he used your favorite word, game changer. But the joke aside, the question is whether these global shutters are going to be the next step on the evolution of these digital cameras. Okay?
Well, I think Canon implied that eventually global shutters
Exactly.
will be in all the cameras, the
So, so,
high-end cameras.
so if that is the case, then somebody had to make the first step. Correct?
Yeah.
Well, Red already has.
I know, but I mean,
And Nikon has made the second step by buying Red.
yeah, I know,
It-
but I
yeah.
mean, now we don't know about. I mean, Red themselves they talk about these are kind of more boutique type uh,
Well,
of
I don't
sensor.
consider red an option for most of us. They're way too
Exactly.
expensive.
It's not the same market. It's not the same. I mean, it's they are in the film studio type of
Yeah.
Yeah,
environment.
but what's happening, Gustavo, is that there is a merging between cinema cameras and still cameras. Because if you want to shoot 30 frames a second raw at at the resolution on your Z9, the difference between that and your Red Komodo X is very
Well,
small.
yeah.
And 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 it just so happens to be that the sensor on the Red Komodo X is better than it is on the Z9.
Right. But you got to realize too that with the exception of maybe a few red bodies, and we're not even talking lenses, red bodies that may be in the $7,000 or $8,000 price point, a lot of their stuff is more than $20,000 and higher.
Well, it's more like 70, but anyway.
But they got some that are in the 20. They're in the 20s too. But I'm saying you can't assume just because you bought them and they made a great sensor that you're going to be able to take that sensor in a camera that costs. We'll take your example, a cinema camera that costs 70 grand, and then take that and necessarily put it in a hybrid
Yeah, but
mirrorless
yeah.
camera without jacking up the price where people can't afford to buy it.
But time will tell, correct?
Time will tell. You gotta dumb it down a little bit. You gotta look at the cost of. You gotta figure out how many cameras can we put this in to spread out the cost so that we don't have to charge a ridiculously high price for it. And nobody knows the answer to that yet.
But see the Komodos, they're around seven.
Yeah.
7,000.
But I know. I mean,
It's not going to take long until they can get it down. See, the big thing is with them is they don't produce many. But all of a sudden, if you're going to produce 10,000, your cost per sensor goes way down.
right. They don't do quantity. They're just doing it for
quality.
For Hollywood types that they have high budgets, so they could pay high dollars for high quality gear.
Yeah.
They're not buying thousands of them. They're not selling thousands of them.
But as we said, time will tell, correct? And because, as you said, Jeff, the current generation of stack sensors and all that it's kind of plateauing, correct? That's what we saw in the Alpha one. That's what we're showing on the R5, correct? They are comparable to the C9, correct? And this is the first generation C9. Because that technology is plateauing, correct? The question is, would there be a new hump coming with growth? We don't know. We will, but that story will reveal, I suspect, pretty soon, correct? Because if that technology is going to take off, it's going to take off in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, okay? I mean, right now, and we've had this for some people. It becomes argumentative, but it's fact based. Is everybody will say, well, that's a professional camera. I think I've had this discussion with John Ishii, and I said the professional photographers, if you say, the Z9 was for professional photographers, if that was true, Nikon couldn't afford to make it and sell it for $5,500. The only reason that camera is $5,500 is because there's a lot more than just professional photographers that were willing to spend $5,500 for that camera.
Yeah.
And it's the serious amateur, the serious amateur, the semi-pro that are buying the majority of the cameras that keep Nikon in business. It's not the professional photographers.
For sure.
Because they don't upgrade as much as we have it. We have the gas a lot more than a professional photographer does. A professional photographer is going to look at every penny he or she spends, and they are not going to jump to the next model number just because it's a new model number. They're going to say, if it doesn't do something that shaves a lot of time off of my processing time or whatever, where I can recoup the cost of buying that, I'm going to keep using the old stuff.
Yeah, and the cinematographer,
we don't have that problem. We just get a bad case of gas and we go out and buy it, and we're the ones that keep Nikon going, not the pros.
And the cinematographers use rental houses, correct, for some of the equipment.
Yeah.
So look at some of the commentary, Jeff, in order to get the in the chat, because there's some good comments there from Albert and Mike.
Albert with the word game changer. Everybody knows I hate that word. I hate that word with a passion. My God, any one little widget that's different, and everybody goes, "It's a game changer." But it's better than high-speed sync. There's no doubt about that. Martin says there's no doubt about that. But like I said, for what it's like, okay, you could do 1/80,000th of a second flash sync. Give me a name of 5 people that are going to use 1/80,000th of a second. You don't need 1/80,000th of a second to take a picture of a moving bullet. You could take a picture of a moving bullet with the camera you have in your lap right now, more than likely.
Well, does anybody make a flash that'll sync at that speed.
I
Oh,
mean, well, and the thing is, even if it syncs at that speed, it's not going to have any significant power.
yeah, but you don't need the power anymore.
Yeah.
That's the issue. So anyway, I think, as I said, for me, the question is this the future or not? Okay, of the next technology revolution on
Well,
digital cameras.
It will be for one reason and one reason only, is if you have to come out with something different, or you will not have anything new for people to spend their money on.
Exactly.
So whether it's just like whether you felt you needed to have a car that has lane departure warnings and an intelligent cruise control where you can define how many car lengths you want to be behind the car in front of you. And everybody would say, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. Well, it comes out because it's that kind of stuff that you got to throw in a car, just like you got to have stuff to throw in a camera.
Exactly.
That gets people to want to spend more money.
Exactly.
And if you said that we're at the pinnacle of the technology right now with stacked sensors and stuff like that, and we can't go a lot farther with it, then people will hang on to their cameras until they break because they have no reason to get rid of them. So there's always going to be some new stuff coming out.
Exactly.
And, but you got to make the global sensor
useful.
Well, you got to make it so you don't have a specialty camera. You got to make it so you have a camera that can do a special something special that another camera may not. But you still want to be able to use it to shoot a wedding, or you still want to use it to do wildlife, or you still want to use it to do landscape photography. So you have to get it so you can shoot at ISO 100 base ISO. You have to get it so the dynamic range doesn't take a hit. And you do all that stuff and you make it affordable, then people are going to buy it. People are going to buy it, even though they may not use that other part of it. Like people will say, better to have it in the camera and know it's there if I ever need it than to not have it at all, right? That's how some people think, correct?
For sure. No.
Yeah, but like I need a global shutter in my camera so I can shoot the Aurora because it moves too fast.
No, it's I mean, we will see.
Here's a good reason to switch, according to Mozman.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not Nikon. But but anyway, it's just it'll be interesting to see what they do, but I really think that they should be able to squeeze some more dynamic range out of the current sensor technology a little bit, and I think there's still room for autofocus improvements, but you need to do what Canon apparently did with the R1 is you got to make it so that your sensors, your pixels in your camera have mixed orientations, so that you don't have a situation where your primary element that you're focusing on is a vertical line and it can't focus on it, or a horizontal line and it doesn't want to focus on it. You want to have it so it snaps right to it either way.
So put that last comment there from Albert about what he had heard.
This one here?
Yes.
Well, yeah, there's some truth in that. Is you can, if to me, 1/80,000th of a second isn't anything that I will ever have a need for. For me, there may be 0.5% of people out there that may need that, but for 99.9% of the people out there buying cameras, they don't need it. It's like, if you buy a Bugatti that can go 500 miles an hour, but your speed limit's 65. What other than bragging rights, what benefit do you get from it when you can't drive it at 500 miles an hour?
Exactly.
So it's like that. Like that's kind of the point that Albert's making. Just because a camera can do something doesn't mean you need it to do that, and it doesn't mean there's a lot of people that need it to do that. It becomes strictly a marketing tool that doesn't necessarily benefit the majority of photographers.
Yeah, but Jeff, at this moment, yes, of course, the point that Canon is making is at this moment with this technology, you are compromising too much. Correct? The image quality of the other cameras are going to be better. So, but it's all right. But let's see what happens in the next time. By the way,
I was kind of surprised, but that they kind of did that. They said that.
Yes.
That's kind of like
exactly. I put a photo to share there, which is from Jim, aka Real Nikon Lover.
Nikon Lover.
Yes, and he took this picture actually when we were doing the last week show. Correct. He was he stepped out and took a picture of the super moon that we had last Saturday, and he took a picture as you can see here with the 800 plus the the time 2 TF, right? In Simi Valley, California, and you can see a tremendous amount of details, and I'm sure that with that combination 800 plus 2TC, there is no cropping of this image.
No, there's not. I could guarantee you there's no cropping of that image.
Exactly. So, well done, Mr. Jim.
I don't know when you found the time to do it, Jim. You've been so busy.
Exactly.
You know.
And he was watching the show, so you can see he's a multitasking. Multitasking.
I think he chooses just not to ever sleep.
Exactly.
He chooses not to ever sleep. I have a quick, well, relatively quick. We only got 15 or so minutes yet, and I'm going to sneak out tomorrow morning and try to get that doggone owl again. Look for that owl again. But I have a little presentation on a vintage camera if you guys want me to do it, or I could skip it and share it next week. It doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
You know, let me just look through let's look through the chat and see if we need to talk about anything in there quick. I don't want to not. Yeah, this is Albert. Yeah, a lot of people. And yeah, you're not the only one that got lambasted. Believe me. You know what's funny is you cannot find any here. Now here's the thing, interesting. You cannot find anything online that tells you how many cameras they sold. They have not revealed how many cameras they sold. You get a generic answer when you search online. It just says it's selling well for the niche market that it was meant for. So what does that mean? You sold 1,000 of them? You sold 100 of them?
I mean, Jeff, you will see that technology arrive when you see on the posting. I took this picture with that particular feature of the A93, right? Because I can only make it with that. Then you say, okay, it's time to be interested in the technology because people start showing images that are only capable to be done with a specific technology, correct?
I would just say that I think for most photographers, if they had to choose, most photographers would buy an A1 Mark II before they buy an A9 III.
Well, the only way you're going to find out how many they produce is start comparing serial numbers. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I figured I'd try to find out, and there is no one out there revealing how many they've sold or who they sold them to or anything. Nothing. It's like, nothing.
Of course. So Martin is asking you what kind of owl are you photographing?
Shriek owl.
Okay.
Trying to find a shriek owl orange one.
Again, that was a beauty.
Yeah, just so I think between Bob and I will be. I'm hoping we'll be able to find it tomorrow.
Very
I
good.
hope so too.
Because we're just going there to find that and then get a few shots and leave, and that's it. That's we're done for today. That's all we're looking for. Because it's getting cold down here now, windy and cold in the morning, and I'm not ready for windy and cold yet.
Oh,
I'm not Mr. Stewart where I'm like, oh, it's a balmy 40 below zero and I feel good. I'm going to share with you guys a quick some pictures, and I'll talk to them, and then I will get the camera out of my camera and just show you the one feature that made it weird enough for me to choose to buy it. It was not a very expensive camera to buy. I did get it, and it was fully tested before I bought it, and it does appear to work. Everything appears to work properly, and I will bring up my material here. I got to find my verbiage sheet, the talking points, and I will bring up the pictures. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about hopefully I'll be able to change the images easily.
You won't be glad that-
This is a Ryko 500. So this is a 35 millimeter rangefinder, has a fixed lens. It was made from 1957 to 1960. So they had four variations made during that time period. So basically every year they updated this camera. So every year it had something that was slightly different than the model the year before. Now this particular image is of the second generation, which came out in 1958. And it had a different shutter. It had a Seikosha-MXL versus the previous Seikosha-MX shutter. And it has the top plate is perfectly flat, as flat as it could be. The original one was stepped down at each end of the top plate, had a little drop off on it. The lens that it came with is a Ryko Matte 45 millimeter f2.8. It's a 5-element lens that was made by a company called Tomioka, which at that time was a quality lens maker during that period of time. Now the camera had a feature they called duo lever focusing controls, which I don't know if you could see my arrow.
Yes, we can.
So see the little projection here and over here. Most cameras only had either one of these on the focusing for the focusing control, or they had a round. It was a round shape, and it was only on one side of the lens. And they put these little handlebars on each side so that to make it
Pointing at the camera strap.
quicker for you to focus it.
you're on the camera strap, Jeff.
What's that?
Your pointer's on the camera strap. Okay, now it's on a lever.
All right. I don't know why I have two arrows on my screen, which is weird. Okay.
So what is that?
Well, another computer can also, if you set the settings in Mac OS,
Yeah.
I can transfer from one screen to the other.
Well, I only got one. I only have one computer on. So I don't know why I see a dark arrow, and I see a smaller arrow, and the one that you're seeing on the lever now is the smaller arrow, which
Yeah.
doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. But
So what do
anyway,
you do with that lever there?
that's for adjusting your focus.
Oh, okay.
So you just grab either one and focus the lens. And then they did come out with a dual range selenium light meter that was not coupled directly to the camera, which most of them were not. That would mount on the accessory shoe that you could get. This particular model did not have a self timer on the second year model, but it was available on the third year of production. They added a self timer to it, and you actually had a hot shoe as well, hot shoe on the top here, as well as a PC socket. So we'll get into the flash sync capabilities, but you did have an actual hot shoe on the top, and you had the PC socket for the older flashes. Now, the camera had a coupled rangefinder. This is the rangefinder. This is the viewfinder. This little lever here is for your flash sync. This little tang hanging down I will demonstrate it when I get to the end. This is actually a bottom mounted film advance lever. So you have no film advance lever on the top, and they put this film advance lever on the bottom, and you fold out, you drop down this, I'm going to just call it, almost looks like a knife blade, right? You drop this down, and with your left hand, your finger rests inside this curve, and you advance the film by pulling this from when you're behind the camera, you'd be pulling it from right to left. So, but you'd be going this direction, okay? And you'd advance the film, and the whole idea was to try to say it was a sports camera because you could advance the film quicker if you were doing sports photography. And what they advertised it was that if you had the settings right, where you had enough depth of field where you didn't have to focus in between shots, that you could actually take 10 shots in 10 seconds, so that you were like one frame per second guy. Technically. So yeah, that's what they were selling it at. Part of the reason they were promoting the camera was this fast, film advance mechanism. So when you look through it's a coupled rangefinder, meaning that when you look through the viewfinder from the back side of the camera, you see the focusing patch, which separates your image, and you move the focusing knob. You move these focusing levers until the images superimpose over each other, and then you're in focus, and the patch is like yellow. It's a yellow area when you're looking through the viewfinder. And unfortunately, this particular model had no frame line in the camera. And if you are like me, a eyeglass wearer, it is impossible for an eyeglass wearer to see the entire viewing area of what's going to be in your image when you take the picture if you wear glasses. It's just not a big enough viewfinder. You'd have to move your eye side to side to see the far left side or see the far right side. You just can't look through it and see the whole thing. Now I will jump to the second image here. This is focusing on the lens, and here is the red lever on the front, and this is for your flash sync. And obviously X sync is your electronic flash, and these other settings, F and M, are delays, are the amount of delay before the flash bulb gets fired. So depending on what flash bulb you buy,
Oh my God.
it'll tell you flash sync is set for M, or with these flash bulbs, flash sync is set for F, and you set it for the appropriate one, and X is would be your flash that you'd have on your hot shoe, and more than likely, and using that. And if you had an older flash that didn't have a hot shoe, then you would use the PC sync port on the front and plug into that. So the here you see, you probably have a better view. Next picture will be a better view for this next. So this is a top-down view. So here's your hot shoe. Here's your film plane indicator. Here's your shutter button. It had a threaded area, a larger diameter thread. The shutter button's inside of that, and you would have to buy, a specialty, cable release to work with this camera, but they did make one. And you have your frame counter over here, and you have a simple rewind crank. Now you do not lift this up to pop the back open because it didn't have that type of mechanism. You physically removed the bottom plate along with the back to get access to load your film in the camera, and you'll see that in a subsequent picture. But what's interesting about this lens, and we'll start from the numbers that you see closest to the front of the camera, these set of f-stops, these are for your depth of field, okay? And this is when you're adjusting your focus, this is your distance in feet. So, if you're at f8, then you just look at these 2 points and see, you look at the foot reading on the ring here, and you can determine what range will be in focus at f8. You then have a knurled knob here with an arrow, and as you turn this, it goes through the it actually moves this little window, and you just get the arrow lined up with what f-stop that you want. And this lens, I know wide open was 2.8, and so you can move this ring to get that arrow to point to and it's in half stop increments in between the numbers. Then you have this dial here with red numbers on it. These are exposure value numbers, and some cameras in the 50s had these numbers because at one time they thought it was getting too confusing for people. People were getting confused with f-stops and shutter speeds, and I don't know, they just tried to simplify it. And my mom's old Kodak Pony 4 View camera used exposure values as well. And what you would do is they actually made some handheld light meters that instead of giving you, you set your ISO, you put in your shutter speed, and then the scale tells you what the f-stop is. You had some that would actually just give you an EV number. So what you would do is you would either adjust the shutter speed and or your aperture so that this red line here lined up with the proper exposure value number. And then you knew you had the correct exposure to take the picture. And what's interesting with this camera that they used as a selling point is while you can adjust the f-stop and the shutter speed separately, if you just turn the shutter speed, the aperture will change with it. So if you went from 2/50th of a second to 100th of a second, you might go from f8 to 5/6. And if you wanted it to still be f8 for some reason, then you would have to move your aperture ring to get it to be on f8, because the numbers would work in parallel. As you changed your shutter speed, the aperture was changing.
A mechanical P mode, program mode.
Yeah. So that's the that's the whole thing with that, how that worked. And then you go to the back of the camera, and you can see that this is as close to flush as you can get, and everything is pretty low profile, and you just have your viewfinder eyepiece in the back, and you have your rewind button. But rather than being like we're used to seeing on old rangefinder cameras or SLRs, where you push the button in and then you just rewind the crank, you had to slide this over and keep it slid over with one hand while you rewound the film. It wasn't like slide it over and it locks in place. You had to slide it over and hold it in that direction while you cranked and rewound the film back into the canister. So that was kind of a negative thing. You had a detachable back. I'll show you the bottom of the camera first. Here's your film advance lever. They called this the trigger-matic winding system. And that's what made this camera unique. And this was not the only camera manufacturer that did something like this. And I will show you one other camera manufacturer that kind of copied this. So they came out with this. And of course it kind of, and that's a reason why your tripod socket is way over on the one side of the camera, because if you had this thing on a tripod, you wouldn't be able to advance the film if you had that in the middle.
Very quirky.
Right, very quirky. And then you just have an ASA reminder of it doesn't physically do anything in the camera because you don't have a metering system built in. It's just so you know whether you got 200 ASA 200 speed film in or 400 or 100 or whatever. You just take this nub and you move it so that the number lines up with the arrow. And then you have an open and close. You got the red for open and the black for close on both sides, and you move the dot over to open on both these knobs, and it allows you to remove the back, which you have here. So your bottom plate and the back comes off, and that's how you get access to put in the film. And this, I just took a picture of the front, has a metal lens cap for it on the front. And this particular model's is in really, really good shape. But this was considered a mid-range 35 millimeter and sold for around $50 to $60 US back in 1958. And by the time they came out with the last model in 1960, they finally added a much larger viewfinder with a bright line frame line that you could easily tell what was going to be on your negative. And it made it so people that wore glasses could actually see the whole frame finally.
I can see, Jeff, why I'm glad that this style of camera didn't catch up, and I can see why Roy hated these rangefinder.
Yeah. And it had, and the last generation, they went from a f2.8 lens to a f1.9 lens. And then the last interesting thing is just to show you how that bottom film advance mechanism got copied. The first Canon's first SLR was came out in 1959. It was called a Canon Flex, and it had a bottom film advance lever similar of design, and I'll show a picture of that camera, and here you go.
Ooh.
That's their interpretation. So obviously this area here flips up, you know,
Yeah.
gives you something to grab onto to advance the film. So as quirky and weird
Yes.
that as this bottom advance mechanism was on this particular camera, Canon actually incorporated the same idea on their first SLR that they ever made.
Wow.
And let's see, I'll get out of this and I'll show you the actual camera. And
That's. I like his T-shirt too.
oh, you like the shirt?
Yeah.
Well, I am nuts. Anyway,
Yeah, certainly working with a camera, you get nuts.
yes. So this is the real deal. So when you pick this up in your hand, the first thing you got to do is you got to drop down that little tang. Okay, you got to drop that down. Looks like a big a fish hook or something, you know.
Yeah.
So then when the whole idea is when you're looking through the viewfinder and you get everything in focus and you got good depth of field and you want to be able to take images quickly, you got your finger wrapped around this, and I put my thumb on the side because it makes it easier, and you basically just go like that, take the shot.
Okay.
And there's your 1 frame per second. And like I said, that carried over, and actually another Canon rangefinder called the V1-T, which kind of looked like an old Leica. Instead of having a lever like this on the bottom, it had like a horizontal rod that there's like a cavity that it rested in, and you pulled it out, and it would stick down like a pencil, and you'd grab it and you'd move it like this to advance your film. So that's another camera that I'm considering buying because it's somewhat rare, but it's more money than I want to spend for something that I'm probably never going to use. But but I mean, this was, I got this with shipping. I got this for less than $90.
Would you get it eBay or?
Yeah. But
that camera style was destined to be a collector's camera.
yeah, this is a collector's camera because of this unique feature. No other reason.
Yeah.
And I'll put it at 2 seconds here. You'll probably hear it. Maybe.
No, we can hear you winding and
You can hear me whining it. Yeah, it's different.
no, definitely, like Albert said, looks like a great condition.
But you never know. I mean, what you're gonna get. Let me see if I see that time I heard it. Okay, I opened up the. You'll be able to see maybe. I opened up the aperture all the way. There we go.
Yeah.
But you can hear the spring in there. But it works, and it was unique, and I decided I wanted to pick it up, but I might have one other Ryko in the cabinet. I'm not sure. I think I have one other one, but I think that one has a problem with it. That one doesn't work 100%. But it's fun to get these eccentric, strange things, even though they're not worth a lot of money. They don't cost a lot of money, but as a collector, it represents a manufacturing experiment that maybe 2 or 3 camera brands used on a few models back in the late 50s to early 60s.
Yes.
And then eventually they realized it was, once again, it was a gimmick, because you can't tell me if you're saying, because of that, I could advance the film with my thumb with a regular winder and do
Almost the same.
one shot a second with that. I don't think that's any faster, but they advertised it as that. So that was a marketing gimmick to get you to buy that camera. But anyway, and here's a funny comment. This is how John Ishii rapidly captured his Pulitzer photo. But yeah, so you never know what you're gonna find, and it's all fun. It's all fun, and so as I get some of these things, I'll use it as filler material to throw in on the show. And my Nicker mat, I think it's the FT2 that I bought, Nicker mat. I just paid the bill on that, so that's shipping back to me, and that had a full CLA, new seals, new mirror foam, calibrated shutter, and checked and or recalibrated metering system. So that camera is going to be in mint mechanical condition when I get it back. So that's a nice little and that camera, I think, is physically smaller than an OM1. It's very, very small, and it's a 35 millimeter interchangeable lens camera, and it's kind of neat. I mean, their Nicker mat was kind of like the affordable option versus when they were selling, when a lot of people were buying the Nikon F1s and deciding what type of prism they wanted on the top, and what kind of focusing screen they wanted on the top. And they were very pricey cameras, and they had a Nicker mat series going on at the same time that you couldn't change the focusing screen. It was whatever it was, how it came from the factory, and no removable pentaprism. But it was affordable, but it was still built very, very good. So you had that line running in parallel with the F1 for a while. So that Nikon made some really, really great cameras, and it's funny, I spent a lot of time looking for vintage Canons, and to be honest with you, one, because they don't have any value because there's too many of them out there, and number two, because at the time I was a Minolta fan. I could only afford Minoltas, but I was a Minolta fan more so than I was a Canon fan at the time. But Canon AE1 program, there's so many of them out there, and they're not worth anything. So I have no interest in having one of those, and I'm thinking about what Canon camera might I want to have, and one might be a Canon F1, not to be confused with the Nikon F1, but unfortunately those prices on those cameras have gotten really, really stupid, gotten very, very high. And other than that, it would have to be old Canon rangefinders that looked like Leicas back in the 50s would be of interest, that you could kind of sort of get one of those in good shape that's affordable. But you know, it's it's fun. It's fun to learn about the cameras. It's fun to see what was out there. It's fun to understand why somebody did something weird with the camera. But anyway, we're going to end the show here. We've gone past our time, but I want to once again wish everybody, because some people came in later on in the evening, wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving next week. Enjoy the time with your family and friends. That's what it's all about, and making sure that you overeat and have too many slices of pie and you eat too much turkey. Turkeys will not thank you. That's all I got to say, is the turkeys will not thank you.
And photo review on December 7th.
Photo review on December 7th.
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. We'll throw that up quick. So remember, because I only have, I believe I have 26 photos right now. So you have basically 2 weeks to send me some images, guys and gals. So please send me some images. Let's get that number. For those of you who may not have been here last week, we did make an announcement. Now, I guess I should remind everybody of this, is that the end of December will be my last normal live stream. I will be continuing to do the photo review, and only the photo review, the first Saturday of every month. So the first Saturday of January, we will still have a photo review. The photo review is not going to go away. You'll still be sending your pictures to me like you do now. And you will still be watching that live stream on my channel. You're going to go to selective imagery. You're going to see that there's a live stream that's going to occur, and you can, click the remind me button, and you're just like you do now. The difference is that come the second week of January is Chuck is going to be providing the format for the show for the remaining Saturdays of every given month. He will be doing it from 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday until midnight, with the potential of it going longer. And many of the people that you see that, well, almost everybody that you see that helped me out on the panel are the people that helped Chuck out when he was originally doing his show. And they will, for the most part, be visiting his show those other weeks to support him, hopefully. And hopefully everybody here in the chat will go to AP Studios for those other Saturday nights and for Chuck Talks. And it's going to be, whatever format he comes up with, but you're going to have familiar faces. I'll be taking a break for a little while, and then I may pop in on the chat occasionally and maybe on the panel once in a while, but I will just be continuing with the photo review, because that's personally something that I had a lot to do with that occurring to begin with, and I feel a personal responsibility with that, and making sure it continues on. So I talked to my wife a bit about it, and we agreed that yeah, go ahead. It's just the one show a month now, and so I'm happy to say that you won't see me as often, but I will still be a part of the community. I will still be seeing, hopefully, all you folks at least the first Saturday of every month, and that you will continue to send me images. So hopefully for those of you that didn't hear that news last week, if you didn't hear it, you now heard it, and that's all I have to say about it. And I think it'll work out. But I want to just say that I think you guys need to. I think it would be greatly appreciated if you obviously support Chuck as you have in the past and help him out as much as you can. He recognizes that he still has some restrictions and he's not as fluent in speaking at times as he'd like to be. So he's gonna require an active panel to assist him and keep the show going. And it's important that you guys in the chat come up with topics to discuss, and so that it maintains itself and works smoothly as possible. So that's about it. And Tim, why don't we personal commentary to Tim here because he's visiting in North Carolina. Tim, let's plan on Tuesday. I come down Tuesday and visit you before you leave, and we break bread and have a little conversation. So let's do Tuesday if that's okay with you, and let me know if that works out. And to everybody else, have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for coming. And we'll see you next week. And I'll make the guys on the panel bigger here because they don't need to be little anymore. I don't do that on purpose, but we actually had a double row tonight, which was interesting. But I'll let everybody here say their goodbyes and thank you, Gustavo, for your presentation, and David, thank you for coming on, and David is now, I'm going to put him under the gun for he got 3 new lenses to balance out his shelving in his house. So we're going to hopefully see some shots from his 105 macro and his 180 to 600. David's going to have to turn into a bird photographer like we're trying to convert everybody else. And then he's got the wonderful 50 millimeter f1.2 to fool around with too. The small, the not so small lens that packs a punch, as they say. So we look forward to seeing images that he takes as he gets to play around with those lenses.
Well, I submitted my photos already for the photo review. I was in Vancouver and it was raining the entire time, and they were holiday shots in the rain and in the fog and everything else. So they're not the best, but anyway. And I wanted to get them in time because somebody was complaining about not getting his shots in early. I'm not mentioning any names, Jeff. Big car. So,
I don't know. I don't know of any big people on this panel that ever complain.
But anyway, you've got them. I'm using my 50 tonight and my webcam, and that's how come. And it's wide open, so that's how come my depth of field is so narrow. I just wanted to try it out so that I can.
Hey, David, I'm going to make a funny here and say it's always the small guys that cause the trouble. If you remember last week.
Yeah, but he said he didn't mind, So
no, I knew he wouldn't mind. He likes a good back and forth. So.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so I better let the other two on the panel have their say, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
See you next week.
Randall, thanks for coming in.
Happy Thanksgiving. Be safe. There's a lot of crazies on the road, and just hope for peace.
Yeah. Well said. God bless everybody. We'll see you next week. And like Randall said, be safe and enjoy the time with your friends and family. And overeat, man. That's the word of the day on Thursday. Overeat. We'll see you later.
Bye bye.